It is. It's got a blue shirt.
Good evening. I'd like to call the June 24th Borough Council meeting to order. Will the clerk please read the open public meeting statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required by Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, specifying the time, date, and location by posting a copy of the notice to the municipal building, a municipal website, providing a copy of the annual notice schedule to the official newspaper of the borough, and is on file in the clerk's office.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Manco.
Here.
Councilman Poznanski.
Here.
Councilman Potter.
Here.
Councilman Zambrana.
Here.
Mayor Murray.
Here.
Borough Attorney Peter Vignola.
Present.
Borough Engineer Lou Plaskanka.
Here.
Borough Administrator Fred Carr.
Here.
Borough Clerk Monica Orlando here.
Will everyone please stand for a moment of silence and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to invite Green Team Representative Dorianne Kerber to come up and give her presentation on the Milltown Senior Center project update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I wanted to let you know on June 8th, Leo at the Home Depot Milltown location submitted an application on our behalf for the Milltown Senior Center project, and it was through the Home Depot Foundation. On the 14th, they granted it, and I just placed the order last Thursday. I gave the order. Well, it was a quote, but he'll get a copy of it. I didn't have a copy at the time, but Ralph will get a copy of the order. All that we will be doing is scheduling the in-service day with Home Depot, but also we need to make sure we get photos before and after. Then they want to have a ceremony, celebration afterwards once the work is all completed, including, any council person or mayor will schedule that as well, and a small signage for the efforts, and congratulations to us for having received the grant. It was in $3,650. Most of it was spent. I still have the paperwork. It's an e-gift card that we applied for the order. So at that time, once it's completed, I can hand it off, all the paperwork to Fred.
Ms. Kerber, if you
Yes.
could just make sure you keep us informed of the dates so we can all schedule it to be there for when you want the ceremony to be?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Everything was pretty much, even the prices went down, so we got more stuff, which is fantastic. And Ralph will be taking care of ordering the shed, as well as the pavers. And what they will be doing is all for raised beds. We increased it from 12 inches to 18 inches because realistically, some roots need a little bit more to root. So we increased that. We also will have two ready-made raised beds for herbs or flowers, whatever they want to do. And then the irrigation system will hook up to the existing spigot. I'm hoping that a new handle will be put on. It's very flat and hard to turn, but then it will wrap around and to the other side of where the beds will be. And in addition, the two rain gardens will be installed. We have to discuss that with Ralph, the cut into it and then removal for winter season. And then I already spoke to this on South River Day, the Girl Scouts, and they combined the three towns, South River, Milltown, and East Brunswick. So they're fully aware of what's going on and waiting for me to wait for the schedule so we can get things going. And I'm sure the Boy Scouts will help out too. So we're going to take the old planters as well, just reuse the soil of them and get rid of them and put the newer ones up. And it's a little bit smaller, but I think it'll be more, aesthetically beautiful. And then we'll put annuals just in those and perennials throughout the flower beds. So I'll let you know when the schedule is, and you'll be informed, and I'll email everyone so that they have information.
Quick question for you. You mentioned signage.
Yes. Signage, I have Rutgers uses someone in Piscataway, and they're really reasonable. And we'll just put, the Home Depot Foundation logo, our town logo. We don't have a green team logo, so we'll just put green team on there and just put the information on there. Because in front of the fence, once the tree is removed, we are taking the one tree by the fence so that we can put a pollinator garden. And I'm doing that for the fall as opposed to now, so it's less watering. And I'm trying to plan that with the students at the school, and like the 8th grade. So this way we can work together like we did over at both schools for the rain garden. But it'll be a pollinator garden, less stress. So I'm looking forward to it, and thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite John Barry, the Borough Planner, to speak about Milltown's affordable housing fourth round obligation.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Thanks for having me in this evening to give a brief overview. I had sent a memorandum around about a month ago that gave a brief outline of some of the changes in the new legislation that the state adopted back in March, and some of the timelines and key dates that we have coming up to think about. The first of those has come and gone. We had an obligation to submit a report about the status of the borough's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so that was submitted. It was very brief because there has been no activity. And Milltown finds itself, as I'm sure many of you are aware, in a unique situation when it comes to planning for affordable housing. The borough's essentially been in litigation for almost 20 years now, and remains the prior rounds of housing obligation remain unresolved. So we're now entering into what's called the fourth round. This dates back to the first round being in the 1980s, and to present. The genesis of all of this was a series of court cases that began in the 1970s that are known as the Mount Laurel cases. So you'll hear about Mount Laurel and Mount Laurel housing and so forth. Over time, Fair Housing Act was adopted in 1985. The Council on Affordable Housing was established during the Christie administration. The Council on Affordable Housing essentially ceased to function and now has been formally abolished. So there was this part of the state agency that was responsible for overseeing the affordable housing obligation for each municipality. Now it has formally been abolished, and in practice over the last almost 10 years now, it's been in the hands of the courts for all towns throughout the state, which has led to a lot of real disparity in how it's been handled depending on who the judge is, who the court masters are, where you are geographically, things like that. So I think part of the impetus behind the state legislature putting this new law into place is to try to streamline and standardize the process that has really gone off in a lot of different directions, again, depending on who you're dealing with. So what it means for the borough is that by October, roughly, give or take, the middle of October, the state, the Department of Community Affairs now is the responsible entity for this part of the law. We'll be releasing a set of obligation numbers for each municipality. Those numbers are based on a methodology that looks at income, median income in the town compared to the overall regional median income. It looks at the change of non-residential ratables over a period of time. So is your non-residential tax base growing or shrinking, and how does that compare to the overall region? And it also looks at the availability and type of land that may be developable or available in the town. So that's a process and a methodology that's going to be applied throughout the state. There are 6 different housing regions that are made up of 3 or 4 counties, depending on where you are. And each town will end up with a number. Now, the borough will have the opportunity to review what the state comes up with. We can do some analysis of our own. We may have local information that is more fine-grained, a little bit better than the state's broad brush approach here. So when the time comes, it'll be important to take a look at that and understand if that number can be adjusted a little bit. What the law says is that by the end of January 2025, so January 31st, 2025, the borough has an obligation to adopt a resolution that claims its obligation, essentially. And that could be the number that the state releases. It could be something that's modified with justification and support for that modification. And then from there, we'll go through a process of planning for how the borough is going to address that obligation. So most recently, we have a housing element and fair share plan that was adopted back in 2018. That was part of one of the many ongoing court orders that have rolled along over the years. But the 2018 housing element and fair share plan sets forth what was essentially the first, second, and third round pieces of the borough's overall obligation, and set out a plan for how to address them. Main component is the Ford Avenue redevelopment area, and then we have a series of affordable housing overlay zones in different parts of the borough, a couple in the Main Street area, the other one along opposite the Ford Avenue redevelopment area, the other industrial parcel that's at the end of Ford Avenue, a couple parcels along Riders Lane, the Acme and Target properties, the larger development on Riders Lane, and then a small parcel on Van Loo. So those are the affordable housing overlays that were adopted as a result of that housing element and fair share plan, and that brings us to where we sit today. The borough still has what's known as an unmet need, and that's what happens when you have a town that's mostly built out, which is what Milltown is, that we don't have large tracts of open space anywhere that could potentially be developable. So you do and look at all the vacant land in town, strip it down and say we only have so many parcels that are undeveloped that are big enough to sustain a housing project, and then you come up with a realistic development potential. You subtract that from your obligation, and everything that's left over is what's known as unmet need, because you don't have an opportunity to really address it affirmatively right now. Those overlay zones are on top of existing developments for the most part, so they're looking at a prospective future, something that could happen, not something that's likely to be developed tomorrow. And I think that's probably where we're going to be as we move forward. We may revisit some of those existing overlay zones to see if there's any changes that need to be made. We may try to identify one or two additional ones perhaps, but I think largely speaking we're going to have just an increasing pool of unmet need, because there's only so much land in Milltown and most of it is already spoken for. So as you know, what we'll look for over the next 6 to 8 months will be to begin to understand what that obligation is as the state releases its numbers. We get a little more information about the methodology, hopefully, because there should be some, to accompany the law, there should be some rulemaking that explains how to implement the law a little bit better. So we hope that everywhere we'll have that available to us. And then after we have a sense of numbers, we'll have timelines to put a new housing element and fair share plan into place by the middle of next year. And we'll take a look at what the options are to do that at that time. One of the shorter term actions that might make sense if we want to start to just throw around some ideas and think about what opportunities there may be on the table for the borough, might be sensible to create an affordable housing subcommittee that includes perhaps a couple members of the council, maybe a member of the planning board, some of the borough professionals, to have some preliminary conversations just so everybody's on the same page with timeline, with process, and then when we are forced to kick into real high gear later this year, we kind of have a game plan and some infrastructure in place so we're not scrambling. So in the short term, I think that's really the one main takeaway. In the longer term, just know that this process is changing, but at the end of the day, for the borough, we still have the litigation that's been going on for, like I said, almost 20 years. That impacts what has happened and what will continue to happen with affordable housing. So we'll have to continue to see how that plays out. And then as far as hitting those benchmarks and timelines that the new legislation calls for, we'll work through the planning process the same way it was done in 2018, come up with a plan document that the planning board can review and adopt, and then go from there. So happy to take questions from,
I have one, because
Yeah.
I just want to be clear on this one, because I asked it when the Acme property was up in front of the planning board. And I threw a hypothetical out there, which was, if the borough had met all of its affordable housing requirements of round 3 in time, would we still have round 4 requirements?
yes.
And the answer to that is,
Yes, yes. And that's every place, you know, the theory being that as the state grows, there continues to be an increasing need for all types of housing. And so I suppose if the state stopped growing, then the numbers may not exist, but we're not there yet.
and is there any possibility for us to avoid this? Are other towns, for example, paying the state a penalty to avoid their affordable housing obligations?
No, so there's no mechanism to buy out of the obligation, or there's nothing set up as a penalty. This is a constitutional obligation for each municipality to address their affordable housing needs. What generally tends to happen if a town doesn't follow through with the process is it becomes vulnerable to what's known as a builder's remedy lawsuit if there's an interested developer, and that's in fact the origin of everything that's been going on in Ford Avenue since 2006, when there was a builder's remedy lawsuit filed and eventually awarded, and that's been part of the borough's history of affordable housing. But failure to meet these timelines, address the statutory obligations would open up that possibility again.
And could you explain what the builder's remedy is to anyone watching at home or
Sure.
sitting in the audience?
Yeah, so the builder's remedy is a mechanism that came out of the second Mount Laurel case back in 1983. And it was basically the tool by which, the stick, if you will, if a town is not compliant with its constitutional obligation to have zoning that allows for development of different types of housing, you know, apartments, townhouses, smaller units that would be affordable, then if the town is not allowing that type of development to take place, then it could be vulnerable to a builder's remedy, which is when you have a builder, anybody who's either a property owner or has an interest in a property brings a project to the table, and the town's zoning doesn't permit it, and the town's zoning generally doesn't allow that type of development. So if you have nowhere in town that you can build apartments, somebody says, I'm going to come in and build an apartment building here, and it's going to have 20% of those units are going to be deed restricted for affordable housing. And if the town hasn't otherwise complied with its obligations, the courts may say, yes, you get the builder gets the remedy of being able to construct that project, and those affordable housing units will go toward the unsatisfied obligation that the town has.
Hey, John,
Yes.
did you say at the beginning that we're going to be lumped in with a bunch of other regions, or there are 6 regions and we're going to be lumped in with a bunch of other towns?
Yes, so that's how the breakdown essentially of the housing obligations are calculated, and this goes back many years in the process. There's 6 regions that are split up by counties, and basically the benchmark is you compare each town to the overall makeup of the region. So the regions are kind of balanced. They have a mixture of counties, different places.
So you're going to mix counties from across the state of New Jersey?
Well, for the regional obligations, yeah, that's how it's been done. And I got to confess, I don't remember off the top of my head which other counties are lumped with Middlesex, but I could certainly get you that information in a second. But that's how the overall obligations are identified. You look at the statewide population growth, which is really a growth in number of households, and then it's broken down by region, and then within the region, each municipality has a share. So, you know, Milltown will have a share. It will be one of 100 towns within its region that has a share of that overall regional need.
But those haven't been determined yet?
The breakdown of the regions in terms of the geography is determined, but the actual numbers haven't been determined yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
John, I have a quick question. The overlay zone map, do you know when the last time that was performed, and is there a requirement that we have to do it before the next round, or is that something that occurs.
Right, so the overlay zones that exist now, there's 7 of them. Most of them were put into place in 2019, fairly early. I don't remember the exact date, but let's say spring 2019, created six of those. And then there was, probably about a year later, there was a settlement regarding the Acme property, and that split what had been this AHO 6, the Affordable Housing 6 zone, into a 6 and a 7.
Okay.
So it just took the existing one and chopped it in half and changed some things with it. Creating those kinds of overlay zones is one of the ways that the borough can address its obligation. It creates a possibility that somebody might develop or redevelop affordable housing in those areas. So when we look at when we get the obligation and when we look at the housing plan that will have to be adopted by the end of June next year, so June 30, 2025, part of that housing plan could recommend changes to the existing overlays. It could recommend creating a new overlay. And at that time, those, if they are going to be changed or created, it would be an action by the governing body to adopt an ordinance to do that. So it's something that may come about as a result of the housing plan, if that's something that needs to be done to help address some of that obligation. But we're not sure yet what that might be.
Okay, thank you.
You say constitutional? That would be the state constitution?
Yes.
Okay. Obligations, in my opinion, doesn't have to be anyone else. They're brought about by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. People have no say in their town. I'm not saying this to pick on you.
No,
I'm bringing this up.
And you know, it's a position that some share, I believe, and you know, I'm the messenger as far as what our.
I don't mean to.
No, I know you don't, and I'm certainly not taking it that way. Just laying out what is being asked of the town by the law, so
I
we can.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Mr. Barry, weren't you in the South Side redevelopment plan?
the South Main Street redevelopment plan.
Right.
As the planner for the borough, I prepared that. Yes.
You didn't include any low-income housing, though, right?
There are the existing AHO 4, I believe, zone is the Spirits of Milltown property that's vacant on South Main Street. That's included in the plan, but also retains its underlying zoning as with inclusionary housing, so an affordable obligation. And then another section of the plan area allows for multifamily development that would require inclusionary housing, so it would require affordable units.
What property was that at?
That's the Whitman properties, for lack of a better word, on the southeast section of the corridor there.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I look forward to continuing the conversation, so we'll be in touch.
Before we continue on, if I could just have everybody from council and mayor move your microphone like an inch closer, because we can barely hear any of you. I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Now is the time for public comments limited to the resolutions on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Again, this is the public portion is limited to the comments only on the resolutions listed on the agenda at this time.
Hello, Randy Ruth, 88 Clay Street. I have concerns that are seemingly new to me, but not, as I understand it, to those who have been managing Milltown's affairs. The sudden proposal for a significant water and sewer rate increase has taken many of us by surprise, prompting the question, if this issue has been known to the council for years, why is it only now being urgently addressed? This feels like an 11th hour revelation to the community, yet it should not be new to our governance. It's perplexing and frankly disconcerting that such a critical need is presented at this late stage rather than at the beginning of the year or even earlier, when we could have tackled it with thoughtful planning and public input. This delay has left us scrambling to handle a crisis that we were told has been looming. This approach undermines trust and raises significant concerns about the transparency and foresight within our council. Furthermore, regarding the water consumption in rental units, it is important to highlight that the financial responsibility for water usage falls on the property owners, regardless of the number of meters installed. This system, while straightforward, underscores a larger issue of how we manage and bill for utilities in a manner that is both fair and efficient. Why are we as a community now only grappling with solutions to problems that were foreseeable and not apparently foreseen? This reactive stance forces us into decisions that could have been serious, it could have had serious implications for every resident, decisions that might have been mitigated or even avoided through proactive governance. As we proceed with this discussion, I urge every member of this council to consider not just the immediate fiscal shortfalls, but also the broader implications of how we plan and communicate. We owe it to all of us that manage their resources wisely and to involve them in the governance process that affects their lives so directly. However, while we discuss the immediate financial necessities, we must also address the long-term sustainability of our financial planning. There has been a mention of a lack of additional ratables, and it appears that there may be room for improvements in how the council plans for economic development. Expanding ratables could significantly lessen the financial burden on individual residents by broadening our tax base. It is imperative that we explore more aggressive and innovative strategies to attract and develop these opportunities. This is not just about navigating through a crisis, but also proactive governance that ensures a thriving future for the entire town. I had presented to this council just last month about the importance of establishing a Historic Preservation Commission. While I'm not sure if the president at the last council meeting saw or heard that presentation, her remarks during council comments do appear to indicate a broader community interest in exploring new approaches to preservation. She's a resident of South Main Street, and she spoke about the need to maintain the town's historical character over allowing extensive development, highlighting the adverse effects of recent construction with a mention of a black eye on Ford Avenue and a split lip on South Main Street. She expressed deep concern over the loss of old trees in historic homes to oversized houses, underlining the irreversible damage to Milltown's charm. Her plea to the council was to prioritize the community's desire to preserve Milltown's historical sense, urging consideration of long-term impacts of the development decisions on the town's heritage. This aligns with the need for a Historic Preservation Commission to safeguard our town's character. So while I trust that a solution will soon be in play and many residents will have to adapt, I urge everyone to handle such situations proactively going forward. We need to stay ahead of the game, not caught off guard and scrambling in defense. Just as in all sports, anticipation and strategy are key to success. We should apply the same principles to our council's planning and actions. Let's aim to be strategic players on the field and not just reacting to the plays as they come. Thank you. I look forward to a transparent and forward-thinking approach in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Spot on with your comments.
Nick Ligotti, 9 Janet Court. I may be breaking the rule that I'm going to ask you guys to enforce, but I believe that you all approved Robert's Rules of Order for your council meetings. Right now, we're talking about resolutions. We're not talking about ordinances. So if someone could direct this in the proper manner, I would appreciate it going forward, that you stick to the Robert Rules of Order that you adopted. That's number one. And the other place that you're not adhering to those rules are when you pull a resolution. You know, there has to be a motion first, there has to be a second, then there's discussion. You guys are doing discussion first, and then you're doing everything a little bit backwards. If you could just clean that up a little bit, that would be great as well. I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rules right now because this is supposed to be time for ordinances that are on the agenda. But I just wanted to do that first to get that out of the way. I'm not sure it makes a big deal one way or the other, but if you do adopt Robert's Rules of Order, you should enforce them at your meetings. Thank you.
If I may ask, Mr. Vignolo, I know we had this discussion when we first thought about, pulling a resolution and before making a motion, having the opportunity to hear someone speak, and I believe you said it was a matter of the preference of the council on how we approach that one doesn't negate the other.
At the end of the day, you have the ability to run your meetings, you've adopted Robert's Rules of Order, but you can certainly deviate from them at times as you see fit. If you feel like there's a better process, perhaps it would be better to memorialize those at some point, but in the years that I've been here, I don't know that there's always been strict adherence to Robert's Rules of Orders. I think if we would like to do that, we can certainly do that going forward.
Yeah. But one of the reasons being, Mr. Legati, was the purpose of if someone pulled a resolution that before we make a motion to approve it, and then you have a second, and then that person brings up a valid point to either amend the resolution or the ordinance, now we have to kind of go back and backtrack. So we wanted to be able to hear the person out and their thoughts and opinions, have that discussion before making a motion.
I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but you should really start out with the proper rules and the proper format. If you want to deviate them, as Mr. Vignolo has said, on occasion, absolutely, knock yourself out. But if you pull a resolution, you make the motion, you second the motion, you have the discussion, either way, you're going to vote on it no matter how you do it. So do it the right way, start off the right way. If you got to deviate there afterwards, you can deviate, but start off the right way. You're going to wind up in the same place anyway with the vote on that resolution that was pulled. You're ending in the same place.
Henry Mertens, 156 Riva Avenue. The last time I came up here, I made it pretty clear that I'm not happy about this rate increase. Even more concerned now because I don't think that some of the members of the council, the utility, or the vast majority of the residents in Milltown truly grasp the terrible position the water utility's in. We as utility customers are looking at a huge rate increase either in the base or utilization, however it gets cracked out, to cover a budget shortfall, but almost no one's talking about the fact that this is just the beginning. One of the conditions of Milltown's lead action level exceedance was that lead service lines and galvanized service lines need replacement. Milltown's ordinance says that the homeowner is responsible for the entire water service from the main to their home. That's been the response anytime anyone has asked about lead service line replacement so far. I have here with me, right here, copies of correspondence between the state DEP and all community water systems that was sent to the licensed operators dated June 14th, 2024. Your licensed operator received this. We are a community water system. This applies to us. It outlines a bunch of stuff regarding lead service lines, but I'm not going to get into anything besides one specific paragraph, and I'm going to read it directly from the letter. Finally, as a reminder, water systems are responsible for the coordination for all lead or galvanized service line replacements, regardless of ownership. Water systems must coordinate the lead service line replacement program in their service area for both the public and private side of the service lines. Water systems may not leave the replacement of lead or galvanized service lines up to the homeowner, as it's the water system's responsibility to ensure that lead or galvanized service lines are replaced. Water systems are not required to pay for the portion of the replacement line since they do not own it. The utility and its operator need to get moving on this. A good estimate of service lines shows that the utility would be responsible for up to 900 replacements from the main to the house or some section thereof. That's 35% of the system. The costs are going to float anywhere between $7,000 and $12,000 depending on the working conditions. That's going to end up being roughly $8.5 million. It's plain as day. Either residents are going to have to pay almost $10,000 on average for a service line replacement directly back to the utility, or the utility is going to need to account for this moving forward as a massive budget shortfall, somewhere along the lines of $1.6 million a year. We're arguing over $350,000 right now. That is a grain of sand at the beach. Even if the residents pay the money back, the utility still needs to front the money to the contractor. You only have until 2031 to finish this program. That's 7 years. We found out last meeting the utility and licensed operator don't know where the galvanized services are located. It's going to take you at least a year to figure out, of your 7 remaining years, just to figure out where you need to dig. Just an FYI, the computer program to manage these replacements was quoted $100,000. Just the computer program to manage it for 2 years. Using the rate increase calculations presented for the 2024 $350,000 shortfall, each utility biller, every single person in town would be looking at a $650 increase per year just to cover this one line item. The affected people who need new lines are going to have to pay $10,000 on top of that back to the utility. It should be the position of this council as the oversight body for the utility to be open and clear with residents about this huge expense that you have to, by statute, pass on to them. The work needs to be done and the money needs to come from somewhere. I don't want the people to think that I'm up here to bash the utility or DPW, because I'm not. As Councilman Rowlinski mentioned last meeting, the utility bought smart meters that are sitting on a pallet because they don't have the manpower to get them installed. These meters have a 10-year lifespan before the internal battery dies. This is no reflection on the borough employees within the utility. It's just a simple fact that there's too much work to be done by the numbers of employees that you have. There are state mandated programs that Middletown are falling behind with, such as valve exercising, enhanced water quality parameters, a 50-year plan for water main replacements. There are real consequences to not doing these things. If we're non-compliant, we will be fined by the DEP, and we will still have to pay to complete that work. I spoke last meeting about the increases in treatment costs that we're going to see from New Brunswick to remove PFOAs and other forever chemicals. Expect at least $100 per quarter increase for each account to cover this. It's already happening in other areas in New Jersey whose water composition is similar to ours. Knowing all this, it's time for the council to make a move. Some want to sell, but I'd argue the valuation is going to be really low because of our current underdressed liabilities. Some want to keep moving forward. If we keep the utility, the revenue's got to stay in the utility, full stop. There are areas in the utility that need critical attention, not to mention the $350,000 shortfall right now that the utility faces for fiscal year 24 that started all of this. The borough should not use any utility revenue to subsidize the payroll and benefits of other departments while all these needs go unchecked. I know the property taxes are a hot button issue right now, but it's a simple reality. Using utility revenue to balance the rest of the budget hurts your residents. Without reductions in staffing, the money for payroll, et cetera, for all these tangentially related departments needs to come from somewhere. So we're going to have to pay it anyway. But at least if it comes out of the tax base, residents would be able to seek some sort of relief by writing it off their income taxes. They don't have the option for utility bills. Again, I beg you guys, form a committee of elected officials, residents, and professionals to help the water utility get on the right side of this. Having a rate study done to project out the revenues versus liabilities would be a great start. As the residents and utility ratepayers, we need and deserve better. People came up here last meeting saying that they can't afford this increase of 90%. What about more than $750 a year on top of that they're going to need to be compliant with the DEP? This is going to drive people out of town, make it unattractive for people to move here, and in turn lower residents' property values, which is going to lower assessed values and ultimately the rest of your tax revenue. I know that this problem wasn't caused by this particular council. It took years and decades to get into this position. Unfortunately, the hot potato has been passed to you. The problem's yours to deal with, and you guys got to deal with it now. I don't know if Middletown should be in the business of selling water. That's a decision that you guys have to make, but eventually the music's going to stop and the residents are going to be stuck with the bill, and that's not fair to us. So that's it.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming up here. I will say that you might want to contact the state because they make us jump hoops. You understand what they're putting forward for us to do. And we have to handle what we can handle, but it's the state that makes us jump hoops, which makes you jump hoops. Constant regulation and re-regulation.
No, and I understand the constant regulation and re-regulation, but at the end of the day, still regulation. We still have to follow it. The cash outlay is still going to be there. We can push for it to change, but at the same time, as much as you push, you're still looking at $8.5 million. You're going to be punching holes in concrete streets, running 50-foot long side service lines. It's going to cost you $15,000 a location, and then you're going to pass that back onto the ratepayers. Somebody's going to have to pay for this anyway. There's no escaping it. So at least be open and honest and clear with your ratepayers that, hey, this is on the horizon. And if you're not being told this by the people who are running by the people who make the decisions, you should have some serious questions for them.
Mr. McClone, I have a question for you. Everything was accurate that was stated about the timelines and the requirements?
I don't know exactly the regulation. It's been some time since I looked at them, but that sounds accurate. That's correct. And again, as the homeowner indicates, the rules, as I understand them, don't necessarily force the borough to make those replacements, but it's an issue that Milltown and many other towns all have the same issue. They changed the game when they went from lead and added galvanized to it, and that's simply around what's called a lead gooseneck, which is why that was added. But your lead problem was bad enough, the galvanized changed the game a little bit for you. We do continue to look at grant programs to see how those can go through and get handled. Thank you, sir. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, I hadn't seen that letter, actually. But we do go through and get, every once in a while, the iBank is a possible funding mechanism for the borough. It's low-interest loans. We keep an eye on it to see whether or not there's any possibility that you'll get what's called principal forgiveness from them at the state level. Right now, there aren't programs that we've seen, but we do keep an eye out for it. I know the borough manager and administrators do the same. So we will continue to do that, hopefully, and there's a way in the future to find this mandate and to fund it without the borough being inconvenienced with this cost.
Okay, if we could all have copies of that,
Yeah.
we'll get the opportunity.
I'm after, I'll leave it with Monica and she can handle it. Mike, do you know when they added the galvanized requirements? About the same time when the rule came out, ultimately they added galvanized and lead together.
Yeah. When was that? Because at first it was lead, and now it's
Right,
galvanized.
it was about 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
You had 10 years to go through and get them done. Remember, it doesn't mandate the borough to do it, it mandates the residents since they own the service from the main to the street, so. But I understand the residents' concern, and we have it for not only Milltown, for many of our clients. Yeah, it's a tough one.
But we really don't know where all the galvanized systems are, do we?
No, there's a way to determine it at the street side and a way to determine it at the house side. And there was a large effort some time ago to determine where the lead was, but the galvanized was out of the mix until the regulation came out.
What, sorry, I know we have a person up at the microphone, but what happens if we do our damnedest to find these services and we don't find them all? Whether it's through a meter replacement program where we're in every house, or if we're just asking the residents to report it and the residents say, look, I don't want to be responsible for a $10,000 change, and it goes undocumented and unrecognized until the sale of a home 20 years from now. What are the repercussions if the state finds out 20 years from now that we have a couple of galvanized services that, despite our best efforts, we weren't able to identify? Are we going to have to pay fines for that throughout? I know this is kind of like a loaded question. The state probably hasn't answered that yet. They like to mandate before they have the answers. But what is our liability in the end? A few years ago when we had the lead services, one thing that I had proposed was maybe the borough take out a bond and then issue a tax lien against the home where the resident could then pay it off over a couple of years, and then if the home was sold, we would get paid in full for that, but at least the resident didn't have to fork over $10,000 immediately. And I was told at that time, legally, we weren't allowed to spend public money on private property.
That's my understanding, correct.
And so where does that leave us again, now that the state is saying you have to do it regardless of who owns it? I mean, is this another line item that we have to put in our water sewer ordinance for revision in the next couple of months to state that we have the obligation, and so does the homeowner, to do that?
The statute was changed to allow you to spend public money to do private residential services.
And just to refresh everyone's memory, when we applied or looked at state aid to assist us in the lead service lines replacement, the state said that because the average income in Milltown exceeds the median income in Middlesex County, we were not applicable for any of those loans or financing programs.
Loans, yes. Grants, no.
Not grants.
Right. And that's ideally what you prefer. Although the loan is a low-interest loan, so that you do get a significant benefit there, but it's not as good like a grant.
Still got to pay for it, though.
Yeah. Now, is that interest based on, the regular market rate for the iBank, or?
John, microphone, please.
Sorry.
They have a calculation they do. Generally, they take a market rate and then they provide financing at a half rate, so it's sort of like a blended rate. Usually about 0.5% what the prime is, half of what the prime is, not 0.5%, half of the prime. So when you calculate over 20 or 30 years, it turns out to be a pretty nice grant. But, and it does help, but it's not like as if you were to get the thing for no cost to the Borough Hall. I'd like to tell you some good news that maybe in the horizon, the next year or so, the state's going to come out with some financing for the towns. I'd like to think maybe they will, because you're not the only town in this position. But that's maybe overly optimistic. I don't want to guarantee it, but it just seems like there's this mandate and it's unfunded, and the $10,000 for a resident is a little bit difficult. Yeah.
They did almost all of Newark with lead service line replacements, and that was paid for by the state, right?
Not exactly.
Yes, it was. It was a pilot program. They were the first city to get this done, and
Federal money.
I'm sorry, but I was at the presentation from the mayor of Newark.
There were some creative financing to pay for that. It didn't come from the state, all of it. So I wish that that was the case for Milltown's sake, but it's not. There were county funds and all kinds of different financing for that. So.
Forced redistribution of wealth.
Well, I don't know what you call it, but it was not all state funded.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Dorianne Kerber, 24 Riva Avenue. I propose we have more of a public meeting about this whole program. There is funding available. There are new grants always coming through, and you just have to keep applying. Doesn't mean one grant is a no, doesn't mean the rest are. They understand that we need financial support. And I've attended a number of webinars and presentations in person. I'm going again on July 17th at Jersey Woodworks Summit, and they talk about this all the time. And I think also what we're supposed to do as a town, just like South River has a great sidewalk program, you go out with the RFP, find the contractor that's going to do the work so that it's that contractor to make it less costly to everyone. That's the purpose of doing this. State laws, updating them for everything, even for the lead has now reduced from 15 points per billion to 10 points per billion. For the testing, there's a lot of changes that took place because of all the chemicals in the water, plus, lead paint. You're supposed to be hitting the doors in July and seeing who has lead paint in their homes. It's mandatory. They're trying to do this because this state is happily far behind compared to many other states who've been doing this. Newark has pushed a postcard. It's a base postcard we could provide as a green team. We discussed it to share the local health departments, free testing for children if there happens to be lead paint found in the homes. That's a process that Newark, Camden, Jersey City, Hoboken have been doing for the last few months. They, of course, again, were the pilot program, and yes, they also received grant funding and also for filters, for water filters, to provide to the homeowners if they found even lead in the water, as well as the lead paint, they get the free testing for the children. So there's a lot of programs, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot to this lead replacement, and I'm sure we could be eligible. We have a new section. FEMA redid the maps. I emailed it to people. I think the mayor and council, that we have a big section on North Main Street to section of South Main Street that's underserved and overburdened community, which was different years ago. It was just updated. So that area might be covered at this point. Oh, before I forget, Mike McClellan, make sure you include the Complete Streets policy for any roadway grants. That's a plus. Someone was reading the application thoroughly, and it's important to keep that, because 40% always goes to towns that have a Complete Streets policy in place, which we did in 2018 and 2019. So I want to make sure you got that information. It usually secures us more for that. But I think we should get New Jersey Future and JDEP to help talk with a committee, a public meeting, so we can all understand the program and understand what the cost will be. And they'll be able to help us with all that. So it's just, I want to make sure you have that information.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. We have a gentleman in the back. Chuck. Our next contestant on the Price is Right. No one seems excited about coming to the microphone.
Joe Piatanza, 15 Bruce Court. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again about the water increase issue. Do you want to be the mayor and council that will be forever known for raising minimum water and sewer rates 90%? Do you want to be known as the mayor and council who are targeting senior citizens and single occupant households? Whether you realize it or not, that is exactly what you're doing. Maybe not in a legal sense, but in the end, who does this affect the most? Between the last meeting and this one, I offered my solutions to each of you. You said that you already tried them and that they would not work. I would say you need to try harder. Find a way to bill each resident the $150 you say you need to cover the borough's water and sewer shortfalls. Has anyone even seen the data that shows these shortfalls? I sure haven't. I am not doubting a shortfall exists, but it would have been very constructive to have seen what it is we are talking about so we could fully understand why these additional funds are needed. Transparency does go a long way. In the end, you will each vote your conscience. Unfortunately, you're not governed by the Board of Public Utilities, because if you were, there would be ramifications for you on many levels. You were each elected by the residents to work for them. A vote of yes for these water and sewer ordinances shows the residents that you do not want to work for them. You want to throw in a quick fix that had little thought after knowing about a problem for 6 months. And you will hurt the people, many who have lived here their entire lives, our senior citizens, who are mostly retired and on fixed incomes. You know, it's interesting that just a few meetings ago, you were discussing free pool passes for seniors. And now, instead of that, you will be nearly doubling their water and sewer bills. I would like to think that each of you are better than this. Thank you.
I do have some data here in front of me. I have the 2023 budget information, which shows the American Rescue Plan grant applied for to the water budget, $364,612.91. The American Rescue Plan, which we refer to as COVID money, free handouts. This problem has been known about for the last 18 months. The previous administration decided, let's use a handout from the government for a quick fix and not even address the issue. And now here we are, 1 year later, still short $350,000 with no little handout from the federal government to offset it.
Could I say something? We signed a contract with New Brunswick Water for a 6-year contract, and the water rates are going to go up for the next 6 years, no matter what we do, Joe. You didn't say nothing last year when we signed the contract for 3.5%, 4%, whatever it was. Where are we going to get the money?
We're talking about a shortfall to take care of fiscal 2024.
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
But we didn't raise it last year when we were under contract with an increase.
Right.
And now we're under
Speak from
contract.
the lectern if you're going to speak, Joe.
Let him speak. I mean, where are we going to get the money, Joe?
Let me just interject here for a second. I don't want the residents at home to think that we are sitting here attacking residents. When we're speaking,
I can take it. It's fine.
We're all passionate about this issue.
I'm passionate, yeah.
But I think it's just important to acknowledge the fact that while we may have noticed this 6 months ago, this has been going on for a very long time. A very long time. Back in 2018, rates were raised 30%. Again, percentages, the dollar amount was about $300,000. The surplus that was generated by that increase was then used to offset any additional costs over the next 5 years. And it probably would have had an increase in the rates last year had it not been for the American Rescue Plan money that came in, that was used to offset it.
Right.
So we raise rates, we generate some extra surplus, but then instead of staying on top of it and raising it as costs go up, we do nothing. Those costs then catch up, and then here we are with a big increase 5 years later. And it's not the way we should be doing business. The way we should be doing is a continuous increase, incremental, to keep up with the cost of expenses.
So, we have a shortfall for fiscal 2024, correct?
Yes?
And $150 per resident, per household, will satisfy that shortfall, correct?
That's correct.
So why can't we just bill a single bill of $150 per household instead of raising the rates? And these rates are not going to come down. Your ordinance doesn't say temporary.
That's correct.
Right. So you're saying it's going to revert back. It's not.
I'm not saying it's going to revert back. What I've said in previous meetings, what I've said in previous meetings is that this $350,000 is reoccurring. Every year, it's a cost of operating. This isn't like we pay it off this year like it's a debt, like we bought 2 trucks and now they're paid off, they're gone. These are operational costs. So we'll need $350 next year, we'll need $350 the year after that, and the year after that, and more likely than not, more money than that, because of the fact that costs of operation go up. So while the ordinance that's on for final adoption tonight does not have an end date, we've all said up here that we need to work over the next 3 months to adopt the rates that set us on the right path for next year. What those look like at this time, I can't say.
So
we need to look at the projections, but we need to generate the revenue. And instead of sending out a separate bill, that would have cost us greater than $10,000. So we didn't want to incur additional costs for
you can't do that in-house.
It cannot be done with the admin system that we use for billing because the billing is tied to your taxes, so they have to integrate. And Edmunds wants to write a separate program for that, and the cost of that mailing and tying it all in was expected to be over $10,000. So we put it in the rates for a 3-month cycle so that everybody gets billed that $150, and then after that, we've already adopted the next round, which hopefully puts us on the right track for next year, including mandatory increases that when our water supplier rates go up, such as New Brunswick, as Councilman Collins said, 3% every year.
I do get that.
That it's not up to this governing body. That automatically, those rates go up. So it's not left up to, I want to get reelected or I want to look good.
That's fine.
It's got to happen. We got to get off the chaos.
I'm trying to get through 2024 without hurting a lot of people. And I think it would behoove you guys to amend your ordinance to make it this 90% temporary until fiscal 2024 is satisfied. Then go, like we talked, we emailed each other. I emailed all you guys. And we discussed there are gaps in water billing. There are households who are maybe getting a free ride. I don't know. But until that is known, you can't have a fair and equitable rate for all the residents until you know you're billing everyone. I think it would be wise to consider.
You sat on council, Joe, like that gentleman there said, you could have taken the salaries out of the water department.
I'm sorry?
You sat on council.
Yeah.
You could have taken the salaries out. He just said you could take the salaries out of the water department. You could have done it, but nobody's going to stand it, and we're not doing it either. So you decrease your taxes. So which one do you want to pay? You can't. You can only deduct $10,000 on your federal taxes. So
The sad reality is that we have an immediate problem and we have an ongoing issue.
Correct.
And we can't address them all in the one fell swoop at this moment. And agreed, the word temporary makes people feel better. And, I mean, we're residents too. So.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
you're not a senior citizen on a fixed income.
And that's a fair statement, and I do get that. But we have to address the immediate, and then by the end of the year, as we've talked about this, we have relatively a short window to address it, but we need to come up with a plan, and we will, and that's how it becomes temporary, or at least becomes a change towards a better system overall. And all the points you've made about things that aren't getting billed properly, I know last meeting, it was mentioned that there are
2,604,
and 4 meters, and there's apparently 3,000 electric meters?
give or take a few.
Right, but
So
some of those are rentals that have multiple
But
dwellings.
again,
I get it, with
but we
one
need
water
to-
line,
we
but
need
some
to close
aren't.
that gap, right, no, you're
Right.
right, you're absolutely right.
Right.
But I'm saying, there's an immediate issue that this is addressing, and it's a regrettable occurrence. And there's a future issue that needs to be addressed, and that is part of what you're saying. And the two just can't, at this moment, we have to fill the gap. And as we go forward to fix the future, that's how this situation and this bill becomes temporary. It will change, and we don't know what that change will be. But I have to expect that, as we all know, we have to change it. And as the public knows, they want to change too, and they're gonna make it happen. It's gonna happen. It has to. It can't go on like this. It is an unsustainable situation.
If you pass this ordinance as is, that 90% never goes away. It's only going to go up from there, whether you want to admit it or not. It never goes down.
And I know what you're saying, but
It
the
never goes
span
down.
of when we're doing it, of when something goes up, in the past 2 years, when you think of everything in this world has gone up 10, 12%. When you look at the amount of time that we're using to recoup this money, as opposed to at least doing it over a reasonable year amount of time, where it's spread over 4 quarters, where it's spread over 12 months, the world is going up. And there's a certain reality about that we can't prevent. New Jersey, expensive place to live, on every single place you take it. But again, this stopgap measure is done based on a short period of time, and that increases the discomfort it causes.
You have an
Wish we could do
opportunity
better.
here not to target seniors and not to target single occupant households. And you're not taking advantage of it. You're giving it to them, and it's just, guys, it's just not right.
I don't understand the statement, though, that we're targeting seniors or single occupant.
Well, who's going to pay,
households.
Rich? Who's going to pay?
Everybody.
Who is
Everybody.
going to pay that? Who is it going to affect the most?
Everybody.
They're paying the minimum now, and you're doubling their bill.
Well, we had to do it to the minimum so that people don't stop using water. The problem, as you probably know, is you have minimum, which is like your service fee, more or less, right? That's our operating cost. And then you have your consumption, your dollars per gallon. Well, if we raise the dollars per gallon and everyone decides not to water their lawn and not to fill their pool or not shower, we don't generate the $344,000 that's needed in the fund. So it has to go to the minimum. And unfortunately, that minimum is paid by everyone. It's paid by senior citizens, it's paid by single occupant households, it's paid by families with 6 kids that are already probably in the 3rd tier, already paying maximum amount because they've got to have showers for their kids. It's paid by everyone equally. And so it's not targeting one group or the other. It's everybody is being hit the same on this. And unfortunately, there's no other way to do it. If we do it to the water, how is that fair for one person to say, well, I use a lot of water and I maintain my lawn, so therefore I have to pay $150 more, but my neighbor who has one person in the house doesn't. These costs are based on operating the system that everyone equally benefits from, regardless of how much water you use. You want to be able to turn on the faucet? That's the system maintenance. That's what these costs are going to.
We'll have to agree to disagree. Thank you.
And Joe, I also have one for you as well. When we had the CFO in the spring, and we needed the shared service agreement to support that CFO. It was pretty much identified. He identified it to me in the beginning, and had that CFO and deputy CFO been on in the spring, it would have helped reduce that number, because we would have been able to try to address this that much sooner. Because that got voted down, and this deputy CFO had resigned, it had gotten pushed back that much more, because you needed that to be in the forefront for the budget and everything else. So that all got thrown out. Thankfully, we have Mr. Zanga, who is doing a bang-up job trying to address everything, and I commend him, and he will be up here to help us address a lot of the questions with the budget and everything else. But he was working tirelessly to try to accommodate and fix some of the shortfalls that have been dumped on this mayor and council from prior years, and we're left holding the bag with, what do we do with all this? It's a big problem that has been on for years, that everybody kicks the can down the curb, and we're not addressing it. We need to address it for the future, not just the present day. And that's what our problem is, that we're not addressing things for the future.
George, I served on council with you. We would have never, ever raised rates 90%.
Which is why we're here today.
Well, I have a question for council. How many of you knew about the problem with the water rates? Because I did not. Well, you did. George did. I did not know. I did not know at all. I'm not a dumb guy. I wasn't told anything. I did not know.
I saw it last year when we adopted the budget. $300 and something thousand for a one-time hit from the feds.
But
it was clear as day.
I have to say that.
It's not their time, it's our time.
Nick, I'm speaking, please.
You have plenty of time to speak.
I'm speaking.
This is
I'm
audience.
speaking.
This is audience
I'm
time.
speaking.
This is audience time. This is not your time.
All right,
We'll talk about that.
Nick, go ahead.
Nick Legati, 9 Janet Court. I just have, if we're not going to follow the rules, I'm not going to follow the rules either then.
You could say that to debates.
The raises that were given to, I guess, utility, water utility employees that you all approved not too long ago, they were pretty substantial raises, $30,000. And if you all knew about this increase that was coming, you may have wanted to rethink giving employees $30,000 raises. I wish I could get a $30,000. I think you wish they could get a $30,000
I would like to
raise.
address that as well, because this was something that was dumped on my lap on the new year as I came in. This was promised, and it was promised in a...
Let's steer clear of personnel discussions if we can.
Okay.
I mean, it's a cost, but I'd rather not start.
It was a cost, it
we're
was
starting to come
promised,
in
and it wasn't
to
delivered.
Identify
basically.
specific people in specific jobs, so we'll.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
Just some food for thought for people out there. I don't,
I'll just
you
say
guys
that-
make the decisions.
I'll just say this,
That's
Nick.
fine.
His quality of work is saving the town
I think he
a
just
lot
told
of
you
funds.
not to do that.
I think what we can say is that when we hired personnel last year, many were hired at introductory rates with the promise of increases.
Okay, that's a promise.
And
if you know
those
you have a
promises weren't upheld.
$350,000 shortfall, giving employees $30,000 raises, where I work, somebody's getting fired. That's what's happening where I work.
Yeah,
Well,
unless we don't have employees anymore.
But the other thing
That's
I
the other
want,
problem.
the other thing I want to know is, you have a $350,000 shortfall. That's not a 3% or 3.5% increase on our water utility is probably $50,000. Where is the shortfall coming from? Where is the 350? Can anybody answer that question, or?
I'll direct that one to Councilman Zambrana, who was the chair of the Finance Committee last year. What was your
I
plan
don't want,
for
I'm not
addressing?
concerned about last year. I'm
We don't wanna
concerned
hear from
about-
him.
I'm concerned about 2024. You had a balanced budget in 2024. You started 2024 with a balanced utility budget. Where did the $350,000 shortfall come from? You can't blame it on a 3.5% increase. That's only I think it's less than $50,000. So where is the rest of that shortfall coming from?
The American Rescue Plan.
Well, Councilman Legatti, I mean, if you'd like to, or, sorry, former Councilman Legatti, if you'd like to.
It's all right.
If you'd like to look, you can see right here, 2023 budget, American Rescue Plan grant, $364,000.
I
That was
understand
used-
that.
But
No,
it
no, no, I mean,
existed
it's-
previously.
That
This is
balance-
not.
Previously,
that
so the
balanced your
shortfall
budget.
Started out
The shortfall was there
before-
last year.
But you balanced it out. You started out balanced.
No.
Where
No,
did the
at
$350,000
the strike of
come from?
midnight,
That was a
at the strike of
one-time shot.
midnight on 2024, there was going to be,
Councilman Zambrano, did you balance the budget at the end of 2023?
We did.
They did.
using
Okay.
money that
And
no
did you
longer
use
exists.
American
Doesn't
Rescue
matter.
Plan money?
No,
which
no,
is
it does. A
non-recoverable?
one-time
You would've
check
done the same
from the
thing.
government
One-
closing
You
a
would've
gap
done the same
that doesn't
thing.
exist
No.
this year.
Yes,
The
you would.
same gap
One
exists
person
and
at
no
a
time.
time,
The same
please.
thing.
Nonsense.
You all would have done the same thing.
No, that's a lie.
That's not a lie.
Because
You know
I
it.
had the
And
integrity
don't
to
accuse
raise
me
the
of
rates
that,
back
son.
in 2018.
No, but what I would accuse you of is you put a Facebook post out today that you totally
That this
misled.
$150 charge
Totally
is simply a
misled
stopgap.
people on
No,
Facebook.
I didn't mislead anyone.
Totally.
This is a stopgap measure.
It's a stopgap.
It is a
forever. It's
stopgap.
perpetuity. They're telling you it's
It
not.
is fixing this year. We don't know what next year brings.
The person
We know it
asked
brings
you,
3.5.
will the rates go back to what they were? And you said, yes, it's only a one-time thing, a one-day
I don't,
thing.
actually, no, I didn't word it that way. I said it that we need this as a stopgap measure,
You-
and we are looking to
I could
change
look it
the
up now,
way.
but I'm not gonna
No,
bother with
we
that.
can. And we are looking to change the way the entire building system works. Because there's a
nobody's
flaw.
answered my question,
There
though.
is a flaw
You
that
had
is
a balanced
ongoing. I'm
budget
sorry,
in
you opened the
January.
door to a statement for me,
Where did the
and I'm going to continue speaking.
$350,000 shortfall come from?
I count.
I understand you used COVID money
Okay,
for
so if
last
that
year.
money, let's put our thinking caps on. If that money wasn't there last year, would we have had a $350,000 shortfall?
You
If
can't
the
because you
government,
wouldn't-
if the federal government didn't give the Borough of Milltown $350,000 for doing nothing other than being the Borough of Milltown, would we have had a $350,000 shortfall last year?
you, as a council, would have figured out a way to fix that.
They did. They applied that money.
They found a way
For
to
one
fix
time.
it,
No, no,
and they
They
did
didn't
it.
create a way, sir. They got a
fixed it.
gift.
No, they put a
If you
bandage on.
can't pay your mortgage for a year,
They
and
fixed
someone
it.
pays your mortgage,
You
then
had
next
a-
year,
We have
you won't have money
here.
for your
You've had
mortgage.
more than 5 minutes, and it's 8:11,
That's-
and I'm going to follow.
There is no
been
5-minute
interrupted
rule.
There is a 5-minute rule,
There is
sir.
no 5-minute rule.
There is a 5-minute rule.
No, show it to me.
There's a 5-minute
Show
rule.
it to me. Peter, is there a 5-minute rule?
Mr. Legatti, the rules of council do provide for 5 minutes on public comment.
Okay, well, then I apologize for taking up your
right.
5 minutes.
right.
I still want to say, you didn't answer my question. You started out with a balanced budget. You had a $350,000 shortfall for 2024. Where did it come from? You can't blame it. You can't blame it on a 3.5% water increase. Where did that money go?
American
You're
Rescue
giving employees $30,000 raises, and you're going to increase the minimum charge, not one billing cycle, but all 4. People have to understand, you're getting charged that basically $160 4 times a year. Not once a year, 4 times a year,
If it goes unchanged, that's correct.
if it goes unchanged.
Just like the last time when the rates went up 30%, and everyone got slammed for it, and they said, how dare they do that? The next administration, when they took office, didn't lower those rates back down. They used the surplus to balance the budget. So I'm still waiting on my thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
What can I say?
But they
except
balance the budget.
you're
They
welcome.
balance the budget every year. Every year, you're supposed to have a surplus. Hopefully, you have a surplus at the end of this year.
It was used. That's a problem. All the surplus was used, and the shot in the arm from
But
the
you're
feds.
still not answering my question. Where did that
The
shortfall
American
come
Rescue
from?
Plan, right there. you
Because
were-
they
That's
filled
money
the
they
hole in the
used to
budget.
fix
It was a
it.
grandfathered shortfall.
There
It's
you
been
go.
there.
I'm sorry
It
to
has
say
been
this.
repeating.
I respect all of you because you're basically volunteering, and it's a hard job to do. I know I sit where you are, but you're doing a poor job right now.
Okay.
In only
I'm
my
embarrassed,
humble
Nick.
opinion.
I'm embarrassed. I gotta raise somebody's rate. Well, what are we gonna do? Tell the state to come on in and kick us off?
So, Mr. Zanga, would you be able to come up and provide some details to this, please? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
I appreciate it.
I've heard a lot, that's okay. So, yes, everything I've heard, this is what I was faced when I started on April 29th when I was appointed. April 30th, I started going through all the operating funds, which is water, sewer, electric, and current. I started with water, sewer. The first thing I noticed is that you had $364,000 of a non-recurring revenue. So on January 1st of '24, that $364,000 is not there. Your only options would be to generate revenue somewhere else or to cut expenses by $364,000. First thing I did also was go through the spending plan for the water sewer. Notice that the purchase of water from New Brunswick and the treatment of sewer from New Brunswick was going up significantly. What happens in a town like Milltown is you pay for sewer at an estimated cost to the New Brunswick. At the end of the year, they give you what they call a true-up bill. That true-up bill is either a deficit or a credit. In 2023, you received a credit of $220,000. 2024, we received a deficit of $147,000. The combination was $367,000. So right away, just starting the budget, we were short about $623,000. I then went through every single line I could possibly go through, went to the wall on every single revenue source, which is surplus. We used every single penny of surplus, which I don't like to do, but we did. Every single penny of miscellaneous revenue, and then went to some other revenue sources that were on the annual financial statement and brought them in as revenue. Got it down to $344,000. So all the statements made before are true. You're short $344,000 this year. Next year, we're probably short about $500,000 to start the budget.
How much?
About $500,000, $500,000 to $600,000 in that range. The problem we faced is we only had one quarter to generate $344,000. That was the biggest problem here. So we looked at two options. One was to put it on consumption first, but as Council President did say, you can't guarantee that revenue is going to come in. The only way to guarantee revenue was on the facility charge or the minimum charge, and that's what we decided to do. So that's where we stand as of today. But I think the biggest problem is there was only one quarter to try to generate this much revenue. So, and another thing too, the effective rate for the year is about 22%. It's not 90%. It's 90% on the minimum charge. But if you take somebody's minimum charge for the whole year, so what I tried to do recently is go through a bunch of accounts. I don't know anybody in town. I tried to go through a bunch of accounts of where people have all different bills. Some people pay $2,500 a year for water, sewer. Some pay $1,500 a year. Some pay just the minimum. If you pay just the minimum for the whole entire year of '24, you would have paid 22.6%. Other people I looked at had maybe $2,500. They would really have a 5% increase because they pay a lot of water. They must have families, or they must have pools or something like that. So it wasn't everybody receiving that increase. Some people that paid a lot more received a smaller increase. But that's where we stand today, and that's what's in the introduced budget. So
You're saying anticipated average increase, like because they had a higher bill, the 150 doesn't generate as high of a percentage
correct. So if someone
on
has
their bill, but it's still 150. I didn't want anyone out home going, wait a second, some people aren't paying the 150? That's not the case.
Everyone's paying 150, but if some people, when I looked, they have a $2,500 water sewer bill for the year. That ended up being 5.8%, I think. Another person I looked was $1,500 a year, ended up being 10%. The minimum amount would have been 22.6% for the year.
Now, you looked not just at last year, but as previous years as well. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And did you see a trend of increasing costs of operation for the water sewer department?
Yes, so the purchase of water and sewer treatment, very lucky that in 2023, so the true-up bill from '22 gave the town a credit of $220,000. The true-up bill in '24 for '23 was the other way for $147,000. So that was a significant change in just 2 years. But yeah, going back, the purchase of water and the sewer treatment were pretty level, pretty steady going up, except for the 1 year drop significantly, and now it went back up again.
Now, we received on the true-up bill at the end of the year for 2022 a credit.
A credit.
And then was the budget in 2023 kept the same as anticipated for 2022, or did we reduce the anticipated spending because of the credit?
They reduced it, which is perfectly legal. You're allowed to do it that way.
But then it puts us even at a further deficit because now we don't have the money should the true-up bill come in higher, which is what happened.
Correct. So in the other town I'm in, we have MCUA. When that happens with us, we try to keep everything level, and we bring the excess in as miscellaneous revenue and let it go into surplus and then utilize it for something. But we try to keep the spending plan correctly because you could run into stuff like this, and then you have a problem that people have to deal with.
So it seems like that's more of a responsible approach rather than.
But the other approach
Drop it
is
down.
legal too. I want to make it clear. It's legal to do. You can do it any which way, but I personally would do it this way because I like to just keep things on a level plateau instead of trying to go up and down.
And so if we didn't, say, do a 3% increase over 5 years compounding. That would be about 15% without the compounding, but with compounding, it's probably closer to 18%, I would think.
Yeah.
3% on 3.3 on 3.3. It's closer to 18%, which, as you just explained, the $150 equates to about a 22% increase if it was spread out over the entire year.
Correct.
There you have it. Thank you.
So what you're saying, Joe, is that they're only going to get paid the minimum people at the, the seniors and people who are minimum users is $152.
Yeah, $150.25 will be in the fourth quarter bill.
$150.
We did not change the dollars per gallon on consumption.
Correct, because we
All
need
the
to
receipts
guarantee
remain.
two things. We need to guarantee the revenue would come in and also for cash flow too. This way, you're generating the revenue. If it was on consumption, you can't guarantee people are going to use the water and actually get billed for the water usage. So,
Enjoy the trade seats.
yeah. So,
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
well,
Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Approving meeting minutes. The minutes for June 10th special meeting are on the agenda for approval. Are there any comments or corrections? No. Can I have a motion and accept the minutes as typed?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Council President Revlinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you. The meeting minutes for June 10th, special meeting, executive session are on the agenda for approval. Are there any comments or corrections? No? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as typed?
So moved.
I have a motion by Council President Revlinsky,
Second?
seconded by Councilman Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. The minutes for June 10th regular meeting are on the agenda for approval. Are there any comments or corrections? No? Can I have the motion to accept the minutes as typed?
Motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Collins, seconded by Council President Revlinsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. Ordinance, public hearing, second reading. The following ordinance was introduced on June 10th and published according to law. If any member of the public wishes to comment on this ordinance, they may do so after the reading. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1539 by title?
Ordinance to add Chapter 15, Building and Housing, Article 11, Residential Lead Paint Testing of revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, to include a policy requiring lead-based paint testing for residential rental properties within the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 24-1539?
I make a motion that ordinance 24-1539 be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revlinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter.
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
We need to open the public portion. It's a
I will
second
now
reading
open the public
ordinance.
hearing for ordinance 24-1539. Please state your name and address for the record. These comments are limited to the comments only on this ordinance.
Lee Weisenberger, 99 JFK Drive. It's just a little thing here. The ordinance reads, it's for residential, rental properties. And then halfway down the page, it says residential lead paint testing, Article 11. So it's just, one's saying rental properties and one's saying residential. So that's just a misprint, or,
It's residential rental properties.
I understand. Yeah, but Article 11,
Not
halfway
commercial
down the
residential,
page.
not commercial rental properties. So not like a strip mall.
Well, like I said, the ordinance reads up top, residential rental properties. And then halfway down the page, it says Article 11, residential lead paint testing. Doesn't say rental.
Might have been a typo.
Yeah. I will take a look at it, but I think it's okay.
Right.
Okay.
Just don't want anybody else to misread that. It's rentals and not residential property yet.
I would think that since it falls under the title of residential, or rental properties, that the word missing from a subsection would be
Right.
deemed applicable to the rental, but that's, we'll let our lawyer decide that one. I only play one on TV.
Residential lead paint tasting. Right. So it's the fact that Article 11 is listed as residential lead paint testing? I'm just trying to understand the nature of what,
Well, like I said, it's pertaining to rental
No,
properties,
where-
and then it goes to residential, and it gives you the list of,
Where are we talking about?
yeah, I'm just trying to,
on the front page.
right.
Right after
Under
Article
section one.
X1,
Residential lead paint.
I get what you're saying. Because there it just mentions residential lead paint.
Okay, so residential rental properties is in the title. The entire, I mean, it could have referred to residential rental lead paint testing, but the title of this is listed as that.
I understand, like I said, but it should be rental at that point too, then, Article 11, right?
Cool.
Because
Let-
it's,
Lead paint testing for residential rentals?
We can, if you guys want to amend Article 11, the title, to add rental to that, I don't think that is a material change on this adoption. So I would leave it to you if that's something you want to do.
Is that the only item on this one?
I look at a lot of documents, one word makes a big difference.
Sure thing.
So I just want to get it straight.
Would not.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve. Peter, we have a motion on the floor to approve. That's been seconded. So what's our next step?
You have to withdraw the motion.
It's just we'll change that for the codification.
So I amend my motion from approve
You don't need to amend it, we can just
Okay.
add the word
Yeah,
in
we'll
for
just add it.
Just
codification.
add it, okay.
Just vote on it.
It's
Okay.
the title, none of the substance of this is changing at all.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir. Thanks, Lee.
And this is all basically mandated by the state.
Yes.
No more comments. I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski. Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Ordinance public hearing, second reading. The following ordinance was introduced on June 10th, 2024, and published in accordance with the law. Any member of the public wishes to comment on this ordinance, they may do so after the reading. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1540 by title?
Ordinance to amend Chapter 25, Water, Section 25-4.1, water rates of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance?
So moved. Or so not moved.
We have a
I
motion
have a
from Council
motion. Do I have a
President.
second?
So we've identified a problem, we've identified a solution, and now no one wants to move forward? Is that?
Second.
Thank you, thank you. I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Manco. Will now open a public hearing on ordinance 24-1540. Please state your name and address for the record. These comments are limited to the comments on this ordinance only.
Good evening, Neil Murata, 54 Van Loo Avenue, Milltown, New Jersey. First, I just want to note for the record that I paid attention to the rules, as stated by Mr. Legati, and I waited till the open on the ordinance. No problem.
The clerk thanks
Okay.
you too.
So, I don't think anybody's saying that the rates have to go up to fix this issue. I don't think that's the issue here. I think it's the manner in which it's being done that is the problem, okay? So When the ordinance was introduced at the last meeting, there was no discussion, and I understand when you have an ordinance introduced, there's no discussion on the ordinance. But the fact is, there was no discussion on how to address the issue. It was not placed before the public. It was not placed before the council to discuss how best to resolve this issue. So I think that was a really big lapse in judgment and an opportunity lost where other people could have come up with an idea how to take care of this issue. So the fact is, another opportunity lost. We need approximately 150, a unit, I guess, or a meter to resolve it.
Per meter customer count.
Okay. I believe, and I understand the Edmonds issue. I don't know if I agree with it, but I understand it, okay? And I understand that the ordinance is based on rate structure. Why wasn't a sunset clause placed in the ordinance? You know how much you have to raise, you're using the minimum, so you have a definite amount, correct? Okay, so you put a sunset clause in, it goes back. That gives you 6 months to say, hey, we got to address this for next year. This is a problem. Everybody knows it's a problem, but that wasn't taken into account, okay? And that's my issue with it. Rich, you mentioned the COVID money. I think you were on council last year.
I was.
I don't know if you came forward and say, hey, this is not where we should use this money.
Nope.
Okay. I just want to make that clear.
No, perfectly clear.
Okay.
I knew my voice was going to get lost, and
Well,
they weren't going to listen anyway, so I kept my mouth shut.
So
being a jerk.
Wow. Great service to Milltown. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean,
So that's my main issue. I think
Wouldn't you put the money in there last year and keep the rates down last year if you had a chance?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't you leave the money in there and use it and give the people a lower?
Well, John, I appreciate you asking me the question. Not everything was before me. I think you were there last year as well.
Right, and I agreed to keep the rates down, but now we can't do it.
So, and I'm not saying the rates don't have to go up. I'm just saying the process that was used, and the fact is, Joe Pietanza brings up a great point. The single person, the fixed income people are taking the biggest brunt for this. Rich, you mentioned somebody shouldn't be able to water their lawn then, okay? That's a choice. Some people don't have that choice. Your minimum people don't have that choice, okay? They're not watering their lawns. They're staying below the minimum because they don't have the ability to do otherwise. So when somebody makes the choice to water their lawn, I understand I gotta pay more money, okay? That's the choice that person makes. So they should have to pay the cost for that, including me. That's the reality. You don't hit the minimum people. I understand the difficulty in calculating how much is necessary. I get it. But again, the sunset clause would have resolved that.
If I may, Mr. Murata, when you were, I'm sure you were around at the time in 2018 when the rates were raised, and we did it at that time through the consumption, the dollars per gallon. We had the tier system adjusted accordingly.
Okay.
And that generated a lot of revenue. Not one person commented on a sunset clause at that time. In fact, previous administrations or the administrations that came after that did not change it. They left it in place. There was no sunset. At that time, I remember Councilman Legati had stood up, I believe he was a councilman at the time, or perhaps a member of the audience, had stood up and said, why don't you do a one-time assessment? And that idea, I remembered this year when we were doing this. The problem that came in was the Edmunds software and trying to get it out. And we said, we're already behind the 8 ball, why add another 10 grand in costs? And the lack of a sunset clause here, and I know this is your time, I just want to,
I'm good,
I
Rich.
apologize,
Yeah,
right?
It's fine. Yeah.
I feel like Goonies, it's our time down here.
No problem, you're good.
But the lack of a sunset clause makes this council act within the next 3 months to address the other issues in our water sewer ordinance that bind our hands from making further improvements, such as ownership of the water services, such as making sure that apartments, each unit is billed accordingly, so it doesn't just fall on the resident who decided to stay in their home instead of go to an apartment building. So there are a lot of changes, I believe I've listed 5 to the several residents that reached out, that we have to adopt in order to set ourselves on the right path and then adjust things for next year. But that's got to be done in 3 months. If we put a sunset clause in now, I can see it, and I know you know politics as well. November's going to roll around, no one's going to do nothing, and in 6 months, we're going to be in the same exact situation going, we're short 700 grand.
I have to respectfully disagree with that. And the reason being, I think the sunset clause lights the fire. There's a time frame. We have to act. And if the people up here don't act, well, they're the ones that are not doing the right thing. And when November comes, hey, you didn't do the right thing, right?
Fair enough.
So another
Matter
point
of
on that.
approach.
Yeah.
I do think if we act honorably, we should be addressing this in this, I mean, in understanding, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I can see where that would afford you some idea of when that ends, but the other thing that in my short time up here, I see that things change. If employment conditions change, it can slow down billing. But it's a thing we have to address, and we are going to address it.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No one else? I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
I'd like to vote last if possible. No, we can't change the order of the roll
No,
call?
we can't change, yeah.
It's my rules? Is that one we can bend? I'm curious as to what my fellow council members are going to do first. I know where I stand on the issue. I'm a yes all the way.
Councilman Collins.
I wish I had another answer, but I really do. I mean, I don't know what we do if we don't adopt problem. I'm embarrassed I have to vote yes.
That's a yes, Councilman Collins?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Poznanski.
I'm going to vote with an explanation. I'm not intimidated.
Ordinance was introduced on June 10th, 2000, in accordance with the law. If any member of the public wishes to comment on this ordinance, they may do so after the reading. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1541 by title?
24-1541, ordinance to amend Chapter 26 Sewer, Section 26-7.9, sewer use charges of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 24-1541?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Manco. I will now open a public hearing on ordinance 24-1541. Please state your name and address for the record. These comments are limited to the comments on this ordinance only.
Dorian Kerber, 24 Riva Avenue. Regarding this ordinance, just like with anything else, you have your county, you have your New Brunswick Water charging us and updating the rates. It's getting increased every year. There's no change. This occurred in 2010. We finally had to raise the rates in 2018, and we're here at the same situation, same the way the vote went. And unfortunately, it's sad. However, you'll be happy to know the New Brunswick residents are paying much, much more than we are in their rates. And they're the first town in the state to do a stormwater management fee. So they can work with managing that. I'm not sure if it takes effect in July or what later this year. That's coming down the pipeline too. For all towns, all municipalities. And some are almost to the point where they're going to be addressing that and probably passing it this year, other towns in the state. It's a shame. But these are state laws. They're passing it on to municipalities. We can't just work with what we have. These fees are to cover expenses. Now, stormwater management fee is going to be a nominal cost once a year, and how it's addressed will be determined at a later date. But right now, we'll be a shortfall. We start in 2025 with $1 million in debt. You really want that? It's a shame. We need to do a planning process. We need to have an outside agency somewhere in New Jersey that's available, New Jersey Future, Jersey Water Works, whatever it is, whatever it takes, even the NJDEP. You got to get the conversation going and have public meetings so that we can figure this out. So that we're not here every 5 to 8 years or whatever, just shoving it down everyone's throats, these expenses. Now, your seniors and low income, they do have programs available addressing these issues. The state knew that utility rates were going up, so they're well prepared for this. And I'm not talking about the stormwater fee. I'm talking about utility fees. I've been keeping up on that, and it's passed on to us just like everybody else. You know, rates go up, repairs go up, and I hear our public works or water department's doing a phenomenal job getting the job done fast, and it is. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. We're getting as good as East Brunswick in a timely manner. And our aging infrastructure, just mending it with lining is not going to solve the issue. We need to have a plan for everything, not just because the rates to operate the system, but rates to also change out the system and stop stalling, because this will be one town that's going to be taken over by the county or the state without fail if we keep doing these Band-Aid issues. And it's a shame. It really is a shame. And I feel bad for people. And I'm hoping that we share that information about the programs that are available and make sure it's listed everywhere, that they pay bills at the senior center, at the library, everywhere, online. We need to do more outreach in this town for sure. And I'm hoping that's changing this year.
Do you remember what happened, Dorian, with Suarez Water in Edison?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
where they sold the utility off, and then it cost so much that the people all complained, and the town had to buy it back.
Correct.
So
It was a shame.
it was a shame. The residents really got hurt.
But they're still operating.
Yeah.
And they're still taking care of their town. And it's great. I see all this new stuff all the time. I have clients over there. I drive over Edison. I work with the Environmental Commission. Everything looks new. Oh, about the water caps, I'm really getting tired of seeing all the caps just flying off everywhere. They're not even covered. We got holes. Tracy Drive, Desmet. Are they ever going to go around and just seal it so there's no hole there? I mean, kids walk there all the time, and people run,
Are you
bike,
talking about
ride.
the valve covers in the street?
Yeah, no, in the sidewalk. I'm so tired of it.
Services.
Been there since 2018.
That's the property of the resident. But I think
In the
we've
sidewalk?
concerned- That's
The
part
cap?
of their service line.
The
and
water
that
cap
is
that's not longer used?
Yep, from the corporation.
If it's the small ones that stick
Yep.
up, have the two holes in the top, that's the resident's property, that's part of the service. That's part of their water service from.
All right, well, do outreach and let us know.
Corporations of the meter.
I don't know how to fix it.
Through the meter.
I have no idea.
Okay. No other comments. I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky. Council President Revelinsky.
No, I heard you. I'm mulling it over.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Looking for a yes or a no vote, Council President.
Can I vote yes with an explanation?
No, I'll take the yes, though. Thank you. Councilman Collins?
Yes, with no explanation. I'm sorry. I got to vote yes.
Councilman Menko?
Yes.
Councilman Poznanski?
No.
Councilman Potter?
No, as currently written.
Councilman Zambrana?
No.
Mayor Murray for the tiebreak.
Yes.
Passes.
Well, I want to say, I'm sorry that this is political, because this is political tonight. but this is exceptionally hard, what each of us are doing here, and when people are castigating us here, think about for yourself. And some of you have been up here.
This is the introduction of ordinance 24-1542. There will be no public input on this ordinance tonight. The introduction summary will be published as required by law. A second reading, public hearing, and final adoption will be considered on July 31st, 2024. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the municipal building, and available at no cost in the office of the municipal clerk between the hours of 8 a.m. 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Fridays. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1542 by title only?
Ordinance 24-1542, ordinance to amend Chapter 25, Building and Housing, Section 25-2, administrative fee for all subcodes of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 24-1542? So moved. I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Collins. Does anyone on the council have any questions or comments? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Motion passes.
A second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will take place on July 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers. Ordinance introduction. This introduction to this ordinance 24-1543. There will be no public input on this ordinance tonight. The introduction summary will be published as required by law. A second reading, public hearing, and final adoption will be considered on July 31st, 2024. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the municipal building, and be available at no cost in the office of the municipal clerk between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Fridays. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1543 by title only?
Ordinance 24-1543, ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Comprehensive Development of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, to add Section 34-7, Privately Owned Salt Storage.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 24-1543?
So moved.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second by Councilman Collins. Does council have any questions or comments?
Yes, what is this about?
There was an explanation in the email.
Yeah,
Yes, I understand.
yeah, so it's a
Why
DEP,
don't they hear about it?
so Councilman, it's a DEP mandated ordinance change that came down for privately owned salt storage in the Borough of Milltown.
Do we have any?
Doesn't matter, we have to adopt it. It's part of our, so we have a stormwater ordinance, as you know, and we have a, part of it, the next one is the same, it's all part of that same thing. We, because you have a stormwater ordinance, they want parts of it. Whether or not you have privately owned salt in town or not is not the conversation. It's, you have to pass the ordinance.
Okay.
I do have one question here. The copy that I'm looking at says that the fees for repeat violations and others is subsection 34-39.2, but that is not in the copy that I have in front of me. Am I perhaps missing a page?
References the general violations of, so this is in your comprehensive development ordinance.
Within that.
So, yeah, there's no separate penalty provision for this section.
Okay.
Your comprehensive development has a penalty provision that's pretty expansive,
Okay.
fines, remedial action, things like that. This just directs you to that for what the remedies are, so that if you want to know what the remedies are for everything, all the violations of comprehensive development, you don't have to go on a per section basis.
Understood. Thank you.
You got it.
Peter, do you think we should post this on the cable channel?
I think that's your choice, Councilman
So
Collins.
that people know this ordinance, because, you know, it's new and the state's making us, you know, do this.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, certainly you can. I mean,
The ordinance are also posted on the webpage.
The webpage?
Pretty prominently after they're adopted.
Yeah, maybe we can get Russ to put it on the cable channel so people see it. That's all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
A second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will take place on July 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers. Ordinance introduction. This is an introduction of ordinance 24-1544. There will be no public input on this ordinance tonight. The introduction summary will be published as required by law in a second reading. Public hearing, final adoption will be considered on July 31st, 2024. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the municipal building, and available at no cost in the office of the municipal clerk between the hours of 8 a.m. 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. 12 p.m. on Fridays. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1544 by title only?
Ordinance to amend Chapter 34 Comprehensive Development of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, to delete Chapter 19 Protection of Trees and add Section 34-36 Tree Removal and Replacement.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt
So
ordinance
moved.
24-1544? Thank you.
I like this one. Sorry.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky. Can I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I have a second by Councilman Collins. Does council have any questions or comments?
Yes, Fred, this is like a Band-Aid too, correct?
Yes,
This
sir.
from the state, we really have no choice.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, sir. And then the list of trees will be kept in the clerk's office because the list of trees changes all the time. So that's why you'll see no specific trees listed in the ordinance.
And just, Councilman Collins, if I may, you already have something that's similar to this in your ordinances. What we're doing is we're taking the DEP template and putting that in your comprehensive development section of your ordinance and getting rid of the existing provisions that, you know, pretty much already regulate tree removal and replacement.
Well, if I recall correctly, they had, this came out last year, or at the end of last year, and then the state kind of postponed implementation. Is that what the change is now? So we had a chance to get rid of a few more without having to replace, but now we've got to replace.
This has to happen now.
All right.
I guess, if I may, is this, so this pertains to the town and not to a resident involving industry?
This is everybody.
Any tree in town.
And shade trees. The size of the trees is what differentiates between a public tree and a private tree.
So it's, again, state mandated, impacts the residents.
Yes.
Impacts everybody.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, no.
No? Councilman Collins?
Yes.
Councilman Menko?
Yes.
Councilman Poznanski?
Yes.
Councilman Potter?
Yes.
Councilman Zambrana?
Yes.
Motion passes.
A second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will take place on July 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Bond ordinance introduction. This is an introduction of bond ordinance 24-1545. There will be no public input on this ordinance tonight. The introduction summary will be published as required by law And a second reading, public hearing, and final adoption will be considered on July 31st, 2024. Full copies of the ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, on the bulletin board at the municipal building, and available at no cost in the office of the municipal clerk between the hours of 8 a.m. 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Fridays. Will the clerk please read bond ordinance 24-1545 by title only?
24-1545, bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of a pumper truck and various fire equipment, appropriating $1,200,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,140,000 bonds and notes to finance a portion of the cost thereof, authorized in and by the Borough of Milltown and the County of Middlesex, New Jersey.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt bond ordinance 24-1545?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Council President Revlinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. Does any council have any questions or comments?
I do. I'd like, if it's possible, if the chief can tell us where we're at with the need of the trucks. I'm very supportive, but I'd just like to hear from the chief.
Good evening, Ray Jolly, Milltown Fire Chief, Anthony Fama, Deputy Fire Chief. So currently we're working with a piece of apparatus that was manufactured in 1998. It's from a manufacturer called American La France. It has a certain kind of criteria to the truck that makes it unrepairable anymore. The pump is defunct on the truck. I can't get parts. I have valves that are irreparable on the truck that I've been trying for 2 years to get parts for, and they're just not available. The engine itself in the truck, if anything goes wrong with that engine, it's not supported by the manufacturer. They don't make that engine anymore. They don't make parts for it anymore. The truck manufacturer itself, American La France, is defunct, and if anything goes wrong with the body of the truck, the chassis of the truck, parts aren't available. And the last part of the truck is the actual body on the truck. It's manufactured by Salisbury. Again, that manufacturer's out of business. So the truck basically is just defunct. Anything else?
Yeah, the additional part of the bond ordinance, we have air packs that were won on a grant in 2002. We're into rapidly getting into the fourth phase of the update by the NFPA standard. So where that puts us is spare parts for our packs. We can no longer support from the manufacturer or the vendor getting new parts for our air packs. So after the purchase of the pumper, the rest of that money that's in the bond ordinance is going to go towards the packs that we need, which is roughly 30 of them.
Any other questions? Not a question. I wanted you to come up just so you could tell everybody where you're at, because I'm sure it's like the way you described. The truck's not going to last another 2, 3, or 5 years.
No, initially the truck in question was going to be engine 62, which was purchased as a stopgap a few years back. It was purchased used. Over the course of the years, we've put a substantial amount of money into that vehicle. The initial cost was around $40,000. We're into over $50,000 in repairs. But the good news is that the way we've repaired the vehicle over the last few years has sustained it enough that we can get through. 63 became an issue after some of the manufacturers have just gone out of business. This truck is important to us because it carries our cascade system. So it does work in conjunction with our air packs. The truck was purchased in 1997, 1998. The cascade system that was put on that truck back then was better than the system that was in the firehouse. Today, our system is in good shape. It's intact. So the cascade system we still need, but it won't be as elaborate or as large, I guess you could say, that's in the vehicle itself now. Yeah, the valves in the truck that make it a pumper truck, They are no longer available. And we've been standing on the vendors for over a year and a half on that stuff. We got nowhere, so we showed a couple of council members on Memorial Day the tape over the pump panel in areas that we just no longer can use. We actually are borrowing a valve from South Old Bridge because one of the valves is no longer repairable. So we went to like a manual closing valve and that kind of stuff. And this truck essentially will become a first due along with our ladder truck. And also being built along the same specs with the E1, it will start to create symmetry in our firehouse. We have 4 different vehicles, 4 different manufacturers, 4 different pump panels. So now you essentially have 34 guys trying to learn 4 different trucks all the time, where the next truck, we're going to stay along line with the manufacturer of the most current recent vehicle purchase, which is in 2016. And that pump panel and everything should line up, and it should be, we start creating symmetry along our vehicles.
So I got 2 questions. What's the lead time?
So, because E1's a larger company, they do vehicles, it's like you go to the dealership, 20, 30 years ago, you'd go in and you'd order a vehicle, and they'd say it's this package, that package, or whatever. Right. It's similar today with fire truck manufacturers. They spec out 10 to 15 trucks a year that are basic design. So basically, what we're looking at is we like to refer to it as a solid Chevy. It's not a Lamborghini, and it's not the.
Is lead time a year and a half?
The lead time is going to be early 2026, be January or February. So other manufacturers are talking 24 months. We're into the 18-month period.
Okay.
With this particular truck that's on the ordinance.
And of the $1.2 million that's in the bond ordinance, approximately the 30 air packs, what is that about?
267, but that's an estimate.
Yeah.
The fire truck itself was spec'd in at $1,020,000.
And you're going to make sure it fits in the new firehouse, right?
Well, thankfully, when the Borough Council finally got us this building, you can pretty much park anything you want in there. It's a 14-foot tall door, and the bays are plenty big.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I appreciate very much what you men do, because you're volunteers, and we have a lot of people coming from New York that don't know that, but you're volunteers, and I believe we should do whatever we can to help you out and keep you supplied correctly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just can't tell you how many people think you're paid, a paid fire department. It's like,
No, 100% volunteer for 113 years?
Yeah.
So,
Paid in gratitude.
yes.
I want to thank you guys, because you go into that, and I know Councilman Potter feels the same way. He'll have a hard time getting through on the microphone, but you go in that firehouse and you look at any vehicle, and it's hard to tell which one's new and which one's old, unless you really know what you're looking at. You guys do an excellent job of maintaining that equipment and keeping it running as best you can, and I understand this has now become a need at 25 years old. It's time to replace.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we have to keep thinking forward, like you guys were talking about the other water bills, and we don't want to bring any of that up, but as we move forward as a community, you got to remember these things do get old and they need to be replaced.
thank you for your service to the town.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye, very strong aye.
Aye,
Councilman Collins.
unequivocally aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
So I really would like to have seen a budget presented first before signing off on a $1.2 million budget for a new pumper truck. Of course, I've talked to Ray and Anthony, the chief here, a number of times over what's needed and what's not needed. So at this point, I will say yes.
Motion passes.
A second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will take place on July 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. Council Chambers. Bond ordinance introduction. This is an introduction of bond ordinance 24-1546. There will be no public input on this ordinance tonight. The introduction summary will be published, required by law, in a second reading, public hearing, final adoption will be considered on July 31st, 2024. Full copies of this ordinance will be posted on the Borough website, in the bulletin board at Municipal Building, and available at no cost in the office of the Municipal Clerk between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Fridays. Will the clerk please read bond ordinance 24-1546 by title only?
24-1546, bond ordinance reappropriating $800,000 in excess bond proceeds not needed for their original purposes in order to finance the cost of various capital improvements and capital acquisitions authorized in and by the Borough of Milltown in the County of Middlesex, New Jersey.
May I have a motion and a second to adopt bond ordinance 24-1546?
So moved.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Potter, I have a second by Councilman Potter. Any questions or comments by council?
Yes. Could someone give me a breakdown of the $800,000 in excess bond proceeds that we're reappropriating, and is that going towards the purchase of the pumper truck?
It's not going towards the purchase.
So
of
the
pumper
answer
truck.
is, on the second page of the ordinance, you can see the listing, Councilman. Did you get a copy of the ordinance?
The ordinance, not the
The ordinance, not
agenda.
the agenda.
Sorry.
So, the short answer is that there was an $800,000 ordinance that the borough passed last year reappropriating funds. We did not delineate in the ordinance that was passed by council last year specific places where the money was, though there were some notations in Edmonds. As we did the budget process this year, we wanted to bring this ordinance back to the council so that we could solidify, if you will, where these costs are going to go to. It started with the looking for that, the mystical, I use the word, the mystical $200,000 that was promised for the fire department. We could find no ordinance resolution anywhere except in Edmonds, a note tied to the old ordinance
Right, but that money was there.
in Edmonds.
Yes.
But not allocated in an ordinance.
That's okay, but it
No,
was there.
Yes,
I
so
understand where you're
it was
coming
in
from.
there, so-
Yes. And
That
the
is
goal-
insufficient for me, and that is insufficient for Joe. We
That's
wanted
fine.
it in an ordinance, nice and clean,
Wanna make
delineated,
sure-
so we're not looking for
Want
it.
to make sure you have what you need to be sufficient.
And that's what you have right here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, this breakdown is $800,000.
Correct.
So all this was broken out for a reason, and now you're taking it all away.
It's still broken out.
Yes?
Still broken down. It was all in there. There's,
No, I know, but you're,
the fire, we don't need the fire truck because we just passed a 1.4, we added it to
but
the
you're
bond.
again, you're reappropriating this? Yes?
Yes.
You're
But it's-
canceling?
No.
You're
So,
not. That's what
no,
I'm missing here, okay.
no. So the $200,000 from the fire department,
Uh-huh.
that was in that ordinance, but not in the ordinance, it was in Edmonds.
Right.
It's been added to the bond. And then we took the 200, and put more road paving, more street paving, more IT in this ordinance. Same amount of money, just added the numbers a little more.
Okay. Before we have the introduction of a budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The only thing I have a problem with is on page 2, it says amount to be reappropriated. It says number 17-14050 adopted June 20th, 2017, providing for the expense related to the Public Works Complex flood mitigation projects. I was just wondering, wouldn't that be including demolition of the green storage Public Works building?
The flood mitigation project, as these bonds were sold in 2017, was for the construction of the new DPW facility and firehouse across the street.
Oh, there was nothing in there for that.
And the excess money
This is the
was
excess money that's
initially.
left over,
This was
basically.
then initially earmarked by the council at that time to clean up the site over here. Last year, council elected to spend this 800 on other things. And again, as our business administrator stated, when we were looking for the $200,000 set aside for the purchase of a fire truck, it wasn't clear where the monies in the ordinance or the resolution went, so in discussions with our business administrator and our CFO, the cleanest, most precise way to reallocate the funds and make sure that it's clear for anyone in the future is through the ordinance. I can go through if anyone wants, the 800. Originally, the police department was getting 126. There was 71,000 left and 55,000 was spent. We've allocated a few extra dollars in this ordinance for cameras and possibly a detective vehicle to see how far it goes. DPW equipment, $65,000 was allocated, 26,000 was spent, meaning 35 less.
Is that in this?
No, these are my notes from the finance meeting. It doesn't say in the ordinance what was and what isn't.
So why wouldn't we get the breakdown of what was?
You could have just called me this weekend when you got your packet on Friday, but you chose not to. So then the library roof was $30K, 30,000 was spent. IT, they had 10,000, nothing was spent, so we're keeping 10 in there. Parks, 114,000, 48,000 was spent with Michelin Field and some playground equipment, 29,000 to the bike path over at Albert Avenue. There was 65,000 left, earmarked for pavilion posts, repairs at Albert, and the purchase of garbage cans. The pool, $14,000 was spent. There was 161,000 put aside, so that means there's 146,000 available there. And then we had, we had an old ordinance, 22-15-12 of 135,000 for the pool. And then we had, the fire truck was 200,000 that was reallocated. So when we went through this, it looks like 346,000 could be reappropriated. We added $94,000 to the roads. Nothing spent, but we do have some additional work, as I believe everyone's aware, over on Highland Drive, East Lawrence, and Oaks Avenue to clean that up after the work from the water main project being done through the interlocal with the county. And then we had some additional soft costs of about 10,000 that were not spent, but we want to make sure it stays. And that concludes my notes from the finance meeting.
And those notes were shared with the finance committee?
The finance committee was present.
Oh. John, Councilman Collins, that sound good to you?
Yeah, I don't recall that, but.
Okay, thanks, John.
Councilman Potter, do you recall this discussion at the finance meeting?
Yes, but I'm looking forward to the presentation from our CFO.
The what? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
No.
Of course not. A second reading and public hearing on this ordinance will take place on July 31st, 2024 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Authorizing payments of municipal obligations. Next on the agenda, we have the authorization of payments of municipal obligations. Will the clerk please read the resolution by title?
Resolution 2024-190, authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Milltown in the total amount of $2,526,226.46.
You have heard the reading of this resolution. Are there any questions? May I have a motion and a second? So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Consent agenda. A consent resolution has been prepared for the resolutions listed on the agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and have been reviewed by Borough Council, will be acted on in one motion. Any items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and if so removed, will be treated as a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of funds. If
If any member of the council wants any resolution acted upon individually, please give me the resolution number, and it will be pulled from the consent resolution.
I'd like to pull 2024-207.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda resolution minus
Whereas
2024-207?
Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular or special meetings upon certain conditions, and whereas each of the following resolutions to be presented before the Borough Council at its June 24th, 2024 regular meeting appear to have the unanimous approval of all members of the Borough Council, 2024-192 through 2024-206, and 2024-208, 2024-209. Now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown that each of the above listed resolutions be approved and adopted by the Borough Council with the same legal effect as though each were read in its entirety at the June 24th, 2024 regular meeting and adopted by separate vote.
You have heard in the reading of the consent resolution. What's your pleasure?
Move that the resolution be adopted.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Will the clerk please read resolution number 2024-207 by title?
Appointing members to the Mount Laurel Subcommittee.
The reason I pulled that is
Will the
that
clerk please call the roll?
Wait,
Oh, he's got a question.
We didn't get a motion.
there's a motion in a second
Motion.
first.
We don't
Second.
have anything.
Make a motion to amend.
What?
No.
Make a motion to approve.
We have 2024-207 on the floor. We need a motion to approve appointing members to the Mount Laurel Subcommittee. I need a motion in a second.
And then you can talk.
Need a motion and a
I
second.
don't want it to go forward because my name is on it, and I chose not to be on it. That's why I pulled it.
You mean this is the first time you're finding out that you're on
Yes.
the Mount Laurel Subcommittee?
Yes.
Awesome.
Did we get a second before the discussion? Did not.
No.
No. So we need a
second.
second first before we get,
Oh, second the motion.
No, all right. Let's,
or amend.
Who the heck is a parliamentarian? That's just what I want to know.
Who's on first?
Well, at this point, you'd probably be better served by making a motion to amend the resolution before you consider it, because it sounds as if,
so take your motion off the floor then, Rich, and then we can
Yeah.
just.
I made a motion to amend, you said no.
I'll second you.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Is there any discussion?
Yes, when the clerk sent out the request for names for this, I knew Councilman Zambrano wanted to be on there, and I had sent an inquiry over to Councilman Poznanski to gauge his interest. I had sent the email over to the clerk to fill the names in while waiting for Councilman Poznanski to respond, which took a little time, and which, when he did finally respond, he said, "I don't want to be on it." And I said, okay, well, we'll just amend it later on then on the floor. But I wanted to be able to get the ordinance, or the resolution in there.
You'll put my name on it.
I'm busy enough. I got 2 kids at home. I can't take on another subcommittee.
You can put my name on it, Rich.
Okay, so let's amend it for Councilman Collins to be on there.
so motion to amend to add Councilman Collins in place of Councilman Poznanski.
Yes, sir?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins.
But we made a motion to amend it already with council, you told me Council President Revelinsky already made a motion to amend, so why are we doing another motion?
We never had a needed to know what you were amending it to. So, I guess in theory,
It's Councilman Collins, that's what I was.
Yeah.
I thought she could read mine, but okay.
By the time the state gets done, I'll be out of office and, who knows where.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, will clerk please call the roll?
So this is a motion by Revelinsky and a second by who?
Councilman Collins.
Collins.
And this is just to amend it.
It's just to amend. You gotta change it before you vote.
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Okay, well, we need a motion to amend.
It's been amended.
To adopt the amended resolution.
Adopt amended resolution 2024-207.
So moved.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky,
Second?
seconded by Councilman Collins. Any discussion? No. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Okay. 2024 budget introduction. Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-210?
Resolution for setting forth reason for delay of introduction of municipal budget for 2024. Whereas according to NJSA 48:4-5.1 and the Director of the Division of Local Government Services, a municipality which does not introduce its municipal budget for 2024 by March 29, 2024 must set forth its reasons for such delay. And whereas as a result of a complete turnover in the borough's administration, additional time was needed to prepare an accurate and responsible budget. And whereas the Borough Council Finance Committee of the Borough of Milltown did not complete its 2024 budget until June 17, 2024. And whereas after finalizing the 2024 municipal budget, time was required for the typing and review thereof. And whereas the Borough Council was unable to assemble with a quorum for a public meeting until its regularly scheduled meeting of June 24, 2024. Now therefore be resolved that the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown request the Director of Division of Local Government Services to accept the late filing of the Borough of Milltown's 2024 municipal budget. Be it further resolved by the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown that the Borough Clerk be and is hereby authorized to forward copies of the within resolution certified to be true copies to Division of Local Government Services, Department of Community Affairs via fast upload.
What is the pleasure of council?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second?
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. Joe, what happens if we don't adopt the budget?
If you like, you never, ever adopt the budget, or just don't do it tonight?
No, if we don't adopt it tonight, what happens?
You get a sharp note of protest from the division like you've already received, and they keep sending hate letters. I mean, is Jacqueline Suarez gonna come down from Trenton and, I don't know, hit you in the head with a baseball bat, Councilman? No, they'll just
hope
keep
not.
sending letters, and we'll have to keep working on it.
And will we, without a budget for the,
Or you just have another temporary until ever. I would strongly suggest we not, makes it a little more challenging, but at the end of the day, Councilman, as I say, in jest, you won't get fired, you won't go to jail, you won't get deployed to a combat zone over Christmas, so at the end of the day, nothing really bad's gonna happen except hate letters from the state. I got a drawer full of them, okay? And it doesn't do anything.
but our taxes are only going up, what, 1.99% this year?
Currently, based on the budget that we've intend to introduce tonight, yes, sir.
Which is
That's the budget, this budget goes up, we were underneath the 2% salary cap. I mean, we're under the 2% cap. That's where we're at right now. Now, the overall taxes of the borough, when we add, as you know, the borough taxes, the county, the school, until they strike the tax rate at the county level, we won't actually know what the true number is. But, it'll be 2% for the borough because that's what we've introduced. But we don't know what the rate is.
And just for clarification, 2% from the borough, on the borough's portion, which is about 23% of the property taxes. is equivalent to $48 for the average home?
$49.98
For the year?
per residential unit. That's set at $163,000. $4.16 a month.
So if your house is worth that much, then your taxes will go up that much. If it's twice that assessed, then it's twice that.
Okay, so it's proportionate to the scale.
Proportion.
Okay.
So that's when you have to go back and do that basic math, if you're in a proportion, X, Y.
So the borough's responsibility, just so that was clear, because I know our CFO doesn't have a microphone. The average assessed home, $4.16 per month at 2%.
Per 160.
So 1% would be $2. 1.5% would be $3. 2% is $4.16 on the average home. That's for the borough's portion. Now, between the school and the county, they're about 3 times that, so school and county, call it $16 a month if they go up 2%. So $20 a month, 2%.
Hey, Fred? Could I ask a question about the language here in the resolution 2024-210?
Yes, sir.
So it says, this is the explanation for the delay? Does this go to the state?
Yes.
It does. Who wrote the language?
Standard language.
Standard language?
Standard language.
Okay.
And since there's no requirement, Councilman, to tell you how many times you went through a CFO, or how long it took the BA to get organized.
Or if you terminated somebody without cause, or you harassed somebody and they left.
Or what I had for lunch. You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Whatever political point you want to make.
Thank you, Frank.
So
No
this is
politics
just,
here. No politics here.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Wait, I got a discussion. How much
I
did
don't
tax
have a-
taxes go up last year in the town?
1.5%, saving us $1 per month, but limiting our ability to perform work this year. Terrific. Forecasting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
I don't have a roll to call because I still need to read the resolution.
Oh, didn't, I thought you read the resolution.
We passed 210, did we not? Oh, no, we did not.
No.
Okay,
No,
so
we're
we
not.
need to call
We're
the
still
roll.
talking about 210.
Okay. So motion by Council President Revelinsky, second by Councilman Collins. Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, this is the introduction of calendar year 2024 municipal budget. Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-211?
Be it resolved that the following statements of revenues and appropriations shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2024. Be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Home News Tribune in the issue of July 18, 2024. The governing body notice is hereby given that the budget and tax resolution was approved by the council members of the Borough of Middletown, County of Middlesex on June 24, 2024. A hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held at the Middletown, New Jersey Borough Hall on July 31st, 2024 at 7:00 p.m., at which time and place objections to said budget and tax resolution for the year 2024 may be presented by taxpayers or other interested persons. Summary of current fund section of approved budget. General appropriations. Appropriations within caps municipal purposes, $8,892,740. Appropriations excluded from caps municipal purposes, $2,917,882.75. Total general appropriations excluded from caps, $2,917,882.75. Reserve for uncollected taxes, 97.90% of tax collections, $630,000. Total general appropriations, $12,440,622.75. Less anticipated revenues other than current property tax, $4,906,693.75. Difference amount to be raised by taxes for support of municipal budget, local tax for municipal purposes, including reserve for uncollected taxes, $7,136,492. Minimum library tax, $397,437.00.
You heard the reading of this budget resolution. What's your pleasure?
I move that this resolution be adopted.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Councilman Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
So is there going to be like a formal budget presentation, like with a PowerPoint, telling me what happened last year versus this year, revenues, expenses, how we get to this place? At the adoption. And then that's when you can ask as many questions as you want. Okay. I'll wait until then. No.
You could just send them out over the next 2 weeks and give our CFO the opportunity to respond to those questions so that all council members can have the answers.
Nothing personal. I'd just like to see a presentation PowerPoint. Nothing to do with you.
Motion passes.
Okay, I have the report from elected officials. Council President Revelinsky.
We were in a personnel committee meeting, so unfortunately I did miss the Ford Avenue meeting on Tuesday last week.
Councilman, excuse me, if I may, Mayor, if we're done with the budget, can the CFO and the auditor make a run for it?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good evening, or what's left.
Sorry, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Not a problem. Thank you, gentlemen. As I was saying, Ford Avenue meeting was held on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I had to miss because of another obligation with the personnel meeting that ran a little late. Finance. We had finance meeting with myself, Councilman Potter, and Councilman Collins on Monday last week to review the final numbers for the budget prior to introduction, which was just introduced. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Collins?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Manco?
Little to report, but the Dorian, of course, the green team, had explained much of what was going on there, so I don't need to reiterate that. The library is in full bloom in their summer reading program, and they have their new system, I believe, up and running at this point, which gives people more access to making reservations online and downloading more books. The rec department didn't have their meeting due to some personal conflicts between a lot of the people involved there, so there's nothing to report there. Beyond that, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Poznanski.
Sure. I'm going to speak about the DPW, but mostly in regards to the roads. As most people can tell, South Main Street has been milled and paved today, up to the light by the gas station here, and they'll proceed tomorrow. It should be done tomorrow and lined Wednesday.
No, that's not correct.
Let me know then.
It's milled today. Milled.
Main Street.
That's what I said. I didn't
Main
mean it
Street.
was paved today. It was milled today. That's what I said.
Milled today, and then they'll be paving on Wednesday and Thursday.
Why aren't they doing anything tomorrow?
They're gonna stripe it in one shot.
Okay. Okay. We're also going to have Highland Drive and feeder streets should be starting in about 2.5 weeks. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Potter?
Yes, in the Milltown Police Department, the OEM meeting to cover the 4th of July occurred on June 6th. We ask for your continued patience while we go through the milling and paving on Main Street. From the Milltown Fire Department, Milltown Rescue Squad, no updates at this time. For the Milltown 4th of July, we're just less than 2 weeks a day from our big day. Information flyers have been delivered to many of the residents. If any resident has not received their flyer, there are copies in Borough Hall. For current information about the day's event, please go to the Milltown 4th of July website, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We look forward to celebrating with all of you on July 4th. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Zambrana?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Board of Health meeting is tomorrow, June 25th. It starts at 6:30 p.m. and it's in person. Our Environmental Commission meeting is on Wednesday, June 26th at 7:30 p.m. and that is via Zoom. Next revitalization committee meeting will be on July 9th at 7:30 via Zoom. And we, just as a small report from the Human Relations Committee, our committee chair, Courtney Williamson, did send a request to the mayor and all the council folks to ask to respectfully fly the Juneteenth and pride flags for the second half of the month for June, but unfortunately that could not be done. That completes my report. Thanks very much.
Okay. Reports from Borough Professional, Peter Vignola.
No report tonight.
CMA,
No report today, Mr. Mayor.
Borough Clerk.
No report.
Thank you. Old business. Does any member of council have any old business to bring before council?
I do. I'm requesting or inviting the chairman of Ford Avenue Commission to visit council meetings on a regular basis as soon as next meeting, if possible, to keep us informed and to detail their achievements over the past 23 years. Also, I'm inviting the school administrator, Stephanie Brown, to give Milltown residents and taxpayers an overview on how their borough taxes are invested into the school system. Being that the schools have received 37.1% more in aid this year from the state taxpayers than last year. It's a monumental increase from the taxpayers. That is in addition to the $18 million plus $2 million in busing, or 66% of your municipal taxes that they receive. They're also asking for and will receive a 2% increase from last year that amounts to $360,000. They could make things easier for all the taxpayers by purging the rolls of out-of-town students, costing taxpayers $16,500 per student. And think about that, folks.
Sorry, I lost track. Are we on new business or old business?
We're still on old business. Good. Does any member of business have any member of council have any new business to bring before council?
Okay, my first one as a councilman. A while ago, it was discussed in a different manner, but it came up that North Brunswick, the way it was written, their agreement to use the facility for their court while their court is being repaired was given at first at free while they suffered the first part of their problem with their flooding, but it was written that it could be revisited, and I think that is something we can certainly look into. It's been a good couple of years, and a nominal or at least a correct fee if we can. I would don't know. I can do it, or if it falls under a different department, to figure out where or what a good amount is, what a reasonable cost is per session going forward, and how we would present that to them. I think that's a worthy endeavor.
Agreed.
And reasonable.
Would that, Council President Revelinsky, would that fall under finance? And
Yep. We'll take
have a
the ball and run with it.
proposal and then give it to our business administrator to discuss with North Brunswick's
Well,
business administrator?
If I recall correctly, we already had Mr. Carr. I'm sure you're listening, I like eye contact sometimes. The last one was about $12.50 a month, if I recall correctly, because that was the trade-off for the CFO, and when that deal was shot down, we went back to the agreement that was previously in place from the previous administration for $0 a month from the city of New Brunswick, or the township of North Brunswick, rather.
Yes, sir. $12.50 was the number that the council batted around at that time of
Yep.
the part-time CFO, correct?
Is that $12.50 a month or $12.50 a week?
A month, sir.
A month?
$12.50 a week sounds good to me.
That's what I
Sounded
said.
better last year when you made the agreement.
Yeah, because the residents are very inconvenienced by the people parking in the lot out there. There's no spots.
Yep.
If you come down, what is it, Wednesday they're here?
Yep.
You can't get a spot anywhere. I mean, people are actually parking in the Legion parking lot and come to the court.
And even beyond that, just to say if they would have to rent the facility, what would that be? And, I do agree though, that I do think kindness can be expressed to them, we don't have to, but, business is business, fair is fair.
So we want to start the negotiations at 10 grand a month and hopefully settle on 5,000 a month, which is about $12.50 a week. Oops. Shouldn't have told them that.
They can watch this, Rich.
Are they watching now?
You never know. You never know the craft.
Is the mayor of North Brunswick watching right now, Mr. Einbinder?
YouTube's only one way, I'm sorry.
Hopefully he's not watching. All right, we'll discuss some numbers, throw them around, and try and draft up an agreement.
I had somebody, when I went through the police door, and they were trying to, they were asking me if I wanted to buy a bail bond. I'm like, no. I thought it was somebody else. I'm like, no, sorry.
Do they have vendor permits for that?
No, I don't know. I think they were asking me if I was somebody, and they wanted to know if I wanted to buy that. I said, no, that's not me. I don't know.
All right, this section's open to the public. The public comment portion of our
We're
meeting
not
is...
done with new business.
What's that?
Not done with new business.
Okay.
I know, we're gonna drag this one out. You like late nights. Mr. Vignolo, I was wondering about an ordinance requiring, this one came up at the last meeting, was an ordinance requiring site maintenance for buildings that such that if you tore it down, that you had to either start construction or make it clean, plant grass, and make it, make it look nice for the town. Is that something that is feasible? Does that conflict with any other regulations?
There were a couple other municipal items that popped up in the interim that required my immediate attention.
Understood.
I will put it on the to-do list.
Okay. That is, of course, if everyone else up here is interested in having legal fees for that. Bueller, anyone?
And if you could tie code enforcement into that to create haste, because code enforcement too should be, it would be nice in some ways if code enforcement was, I think, more aggressive even down the road to have a couple of people if we're gonna have building and meters and such. I don't know how that all fits together, but.
So you want to hire another code enforcement?
Not this year, so.
Okay.
But.
I'm glad you had one.
I mean, code enforcement in some towns, and again, I'm new, but in some towns, code enforcement is not only is it a creator of revenue, but it's also a good secondary notion of public safety.
I hear you.
Well, especially with the adoption of the lead paint ordinance for rental units, and then looking at putting in a meter or equivalent meter for all rental units to try and increase the number of metered residents paying the minimum in town to help mitigate the cost of the minimum. I know one municipality that when they did it, they actually sent college kids around. They were able to get them at a low cost, and the college kids walked around and just identified multiple mailboxes. And that resulted in, documenting all of the multifamily rentals, whether we have it on the books or not. But I've reached out to our code enforcement official and asked him to make that a priority, especially since now that we have the lead-based paint ordinance, as well as addressing some of the issues on Main Street.
One more of the, I don't know, it may not qualify as a new business, but it was mentioned to me by a town person. We do have, 2 firehouses that are not being used. And perhaps using one of those, or getting rid of one of those, selling it off and using that money would be beneficial in some way. Perhaps we can create something that would help put the meters in, which I've heard in estimations that as we're paying a guy simply to read meters, perhaps that's just a way of offsetting our costs in the future. However we achieve that, but that was certainly a worthy recommendation. I think we just mentioned it.
And I think in conjunction with that, based on the planner's report or presentation this evening, we've learned that there's going to be another round of affordable housing obligations coming through, and they'll look at what sort of open space we have. So we have to consider whether or not the borough wants to keep those 2 properties of the former firehouses, and whether or not the state might mandate us to provide more low-income or affordable housing on those sites. So we have to start looking at some of our assets here and decide whether we're going to need them, use them, or get rid of them.
So, Mr. Vignolo, I have a question for you. Sure. Specifically for the South Main Street Firehouse with the property there. Is the parking lot, it's all the firehouse?
No, the parking lot if you look at how the lot's layout, I believe goes to the property to the right, where the Historic Society is.
Is it the entire parking lot?
I
or-
think it's a large majority of it, if
Okay.
memory serves me correctly. So at some point, I would think if the borough was inclined to sell the firehouse property or otherwise dispose of it, you would probably want to do something to at least get some parking onto that site. Otherwise, you're going to create, I think adaptive reuse is what everybody had hoped might occur. But if the building takes up the entire site and doesn't have any parking around it, you're creating a problem.
We would then need to subdivide that partial?
Yep.
Okay.
So you need to see what you want to do. So at some point, someone needs to look at those properties and perhaps sit down with Mr. Barry, Mr. McClellan's office, and figure out where you think the best line to draw is for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Any more? No? Okay, open to the public. The public comment portion of our meeting is to allow the public to bring to the council's attention their comments or concerns. The council will respect the public's time by refraining from any comments until the speaker has finished. Should it be further noted that the public comment portion of our meeting is not structured as a question and answer session, please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Williams. My pronouns are she and her. I live at 318 Clay Street, and I'm coming to you today as the chair of the HRC. So I've come today really to answer a question that was asked of the HRC and to ask one back. I wrote on behalf of the HRC, whose duty it is to foster through community effort, goodwill, cooperation, and conciliation amongst the groups and elements of the inhabitants of this borough, to make recommendations to the mayor and council for the development policies and procedures of programs and for programs, formal and informal, that will aid in the culmination of against all types of discrimination based upon race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, age, gender, affectional or sexual orientation, marital status, so on and so forth. We wrote together the request that the council display both Juneteenth and Pride flags, as well as recognize them amongst the town as the federally recognized holidays. The response that we received from Councilmember Posnanski is as followed. There is one flag that unites us all as Americans. It has been fought for and died for to keep this country and other countries free from tyranny and hatred. I respect all colors and creeds, religions, and sexuality, but as I represent all people in Milltown, one flag has united us all others divide us. How many more flags will we have to put up to placate other groups?
Thank you for reading that.
Yes,
Peter,
that's no problem.
Does she get to bring me up like this? To speak about me in particular? I am proud of what I put, by the way.
I believe I haven't finished stating my statement, and
Well, I just said what I said.
don't.
Since you named me.
All right. Can we please let Ms. Williams finish her statement?
Well, thank you for your saying that. That's why I've come up here today to address it and to have a dialogue again. To clarify, the Juneteenth and Pride flags are not meant to pacify or be performative, but representative of unity, inclusivity, and struggle faced by people who were not valued the same in this country as Americans, or even human beings for that matter. The Juneteenth flag represents the official end of slavery, illustrating the blood that was shed by Black Americans enslaved by the United States, dating back to 1885, older than the flag of Milltown. The multicolored pride flag reflects the diversity of the LGBTQIA+ community and the spectrum of human sexuality and gender. We are a diverse community with many different members, many different identities. I'm standing in this room right now with 4 different flags on the walls and 3 more outside. So to answer your question, one flag will never be enough, And my question, recognize or display more flags and symbols that continue to represent unity and diversity in our community.
No one else?
Richard Ryan, 60 South Main Street. Good evening, everybody. I've been having a difficult time trying to identify a borough document, and I'd like to ask the question if somebody could reference for me where I may find it. I'm looking to read an ordinance as it pertains to fireworks in town. The reason being, I understand that a couple of years back, state of New Jersey changed their law and allowed for sale and possession of certain types of fireworks. And I'm unaware if that caused any change in language of an ordinance here in Milltown. I bring that up obviously because of the time of year it is. And specifically because the group that rents the church at St. Paul's decided this past Saturday that it was time to start with fireworks in the middle of the afternoon. So, as I come every 2 weeks or so to speak to you guys, nothing changes. I understand there's a court date where there's some violations pending. However, it just is continually the same and more aggressive use of the buildings and the grounds. And apparently, if I'm not here making everybody aware of it, then nobody is. And so, I called the police again this past Saturday and asked this time for an officer to be sent over. That was done. I'm not aware of any sort of interaction with the people that are using the facility, but I did witness on 2 different occasions the police respond to the general area with regard to what was going on and my complaint. So I really would like to see that ordinance, and I don't know where I can find it. If I can find it on the borough website.
I can look to see if there is an ordinance. I don't know what we do or don't have. I don't recall if I was the borough attorney at the time the statute was changed regarding fireworks, and whether or not that statute itself allows for a different regulation by municipalities. So I'll take a look.
Mr. Ryan, all of our ordinances are online. Our municipal code book is online on our website.
Okay.
Everything's, but a quick search that I just did is just showing something from 1984 regarding fireworks in the park.
All right. So it's not been changed.
My guess is no.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Do we typically amend our borough ordinances when the state mandates it, if it's not necessarily a state mandates that the borough update the ordinances?
It depends on what it does. So if you've got a state ordinance that enables municipality to have different regulations, so for example, the cannabis, statutes that came out recently that allowed for municipalities to decide whether or not they would allow them within, their boundaries. You sometimes have state statutes that are like that, and others that are just set forth the regulation itself. And municipalities don't really have a lot of discretion as to what they do or don't do. I would need to take a look at it and see what it did. I will admit the fireworks statutes is not, the thing I have, tip of my tongue.
I understand. And if the ordinance with regard to that hasn't been changed, could I ask that you would further investigate whether or not I have some sort of recourse with regard to that activity within a different ordinance? Whether, I don't know what the language would be, but, would it be a disturbing the peace thing or noise ordinance?
While Mr. Ryan, you know I respect you greatly, I don't know that I necessarily tasked with doing a residence research as to whether or not they have recourse under a particular ordinance.
I understand. When you have an opportunity, anything you may be able to find out, I would appreciate it.
If the council wants me to figure out the fireworks question, I can take a look at that. But everything I do is generally tasked by the municipality.
I would say I am curious about it. I know when the fireworks laws were passed in the state of New Jersey, Target received a large delivery of fireworks, and I think the store manager called our local police department and said, there's a bunch of fireworks here, what do we do? Right. Because it was news to everyone at that time. So a good understanding of actually what is legal and what is not legal in the state of New Jersey would be helpful, because from my understanding, and I haven't read the laws, but I believe it's no aerial fireworks as far as for home use or, not an authorized fireworks company. Which, 4th of July, I mean, it's kind of clear that all rules go out the window because you just can't chase everybody down, but
Just like here on a Monday.
I found it disturbing the other night when, my dog's freaking out in the backyard because someone decided to light fireworks off nearby, whether that was a neighboring municipality or not, so.
And I appreciate that, and we understand that it happens this time of year. It's not something that happens all year long. But it is just another example of certain residents being subjected to things that they shouldn't be. And so, that's my cause for asking about language in an ordinance. Sorry we're here so late this evening.
Jennifer Pinella, 193 South Main Street, Milltown. I do have here some copies of a letter and a petition. People have signed a petition, which I'm going to hand out to the council afterward. This is not the letter that I'm going to read right now. It's different, but I'm just going to read this one. But I had a question before I began. At the July 10th meeting coming up, the planning board meeting in regards to Christopher Street, will all of you gentlemen be at the, or is that a different group altogether?
It's a different group.
It's a different group. So I may this letter that I read right now reach the ears of those who will be voting on July 10th. I'll be using this platform as, is that okay?
I would also recommend, if I may, Ms. Pinella, to show up on July 10th at the planning board meeting. And
because the planning board meetings when that will occur.
I know, but I don't want to read this in front of them.
I understand, but what I'm saying is the mayor and council really shouldn't be commenting on pending applications before that.
We have nothing to do with how they vote.
Can I use this as a platform? And I know it's late.
This is the public comment section. You can make whatever public comments you
Camilla,
want within the confines of the time.
You can also give me a copy and I can disseminate it to the planning board if you don't want to read it to them.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Gentlemen of the board, I first want to thank you for the time you take from your busy lives and families to serve the residents of Milltown. It does not go unnoticed or unappreciated. We just wanted to present a few things to think about going forward. Okay. Many of us are wondering how such a development plan, such as Christopher Street, could be possible. Proposing to build the kinds of structures and roads they are planning requires more than Christopher Street can provide. We found out how they can proceed with such a plan. They have been quietly offering payoffs to subdivide the Main Street landlords, to the Main Street landlords who own but do not live here, to purchase and subdivide the back portions of their wooded lots. Offers as low as a few $1,000s have been offered. How miserly and grossly unfair can they be? They are exploiting those who don't have a voice, our neighbors who rent. The people who rent these properties don't have a voice because they don't own the property, and the landlords don't care because they don't live there. These wealthy parasites need to be stopped. They want to expand their wealth at our expense. How unjust to those of us that do live in our single-family homes, who do not wish to sell our backlots or subdivide them. The opinions of those of us who own homes and live here should have more weight than the opinions of the landlords who own homes but do not live here in town. It's not just Henry Street that will be affected. All of the private homeowners with families living on a beautiful little cul-de-sac called Nicholas Court own properties that are about to be decimated, and they don't even know it. And they won't find out about it until it's too late. These few stand to make a fortune at the expense of dozens of Milltown families. If they plan to take Christopher Street all the way out to JFK, then the families on Violet Terrace could potentially be affected as well. It's so upsetting to us that someone can look at our town from an aerial perspective on a map and make all of these plans to line their pockets with zero regard for the people who actually live here. We expect our properties to be protected. Some say that big fancy houses will increase our property values. They will also increase our taxes. I don't want to pay higher taxes. This is going to affect everyone's pocketbook. We prefer to keep our beautiful wooded backyards that bring us solitude and joy and not higher taxes. Anyone thinking they will save money by selling their back lots, think again. When they slap up those McMansions in our backyards, they will cause everyone's taxes to go up, and you'll end up paying more taxes than you did at the first. This deal will only benefit the developers who stand to make millions, and who is contracted to fell all of those trees, I'd like to know. The plan is to build impermeable surfaces and large structures on top of the highest point in this town. Let's think about that. Making the highest point in town impermeable to water by laying a street, constructing large buildings, and taking out potentially thousands of trees. Up until now, the large swath of trees has been absorbing large amounts of water, protecting the homes below on Henry Street and Nicholas Court. The U.S. Forest Service estimates that 100 mature trees can keep about 140,000 gallons of water from flowing into storm sewers. This group is also asking to waive their environmental scan. I wonder why. We wonder why. And we would like to look into the ordinance introduced at tonight's meeting regarding the amendment of the trees protection ordinance. We want to sound the alarm that without those trees, the water flowing down from the highest point without anything to impede it will flood the homes below, inundating our garages that hold our electric cars, our basements, and it's not hard to imagine our first floors as well. Look what happened in Edison last year. And do we think that the water will stop at the end of Henry Street? It will not. The water will follow the grade down to JFK and affect all of those homes as well. When this happens, we will wish that we still had all of those trees to absorb all those hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. We keep taking and taking from our environment, and we never seem to learn lessons. Water damage is the costliest form of home damage. The homeowners of Milltown will pay the high price that we've been seeing in the news of surrounding towns that have been paying the price of flood damage for overdevelopment. This is too high a price for us to pay as a small town. It's not fair to most of the people involved. We will lose our wooded backyards, our taxes will go up, and we will suffer from water damage due to the loss of the trees. We lose all the way around. We gain nothing. Remember, these greedy parasites are trying to buy up the properties behind Main Street to extend Christopher Street as far as they can. They don't care about us or the enjoyment we get from our wooded properties. They don't care about us, and they only care about making money for themselves. Real estate developers are powerful people. They have slick lawyers, professional teams that draw up impressive plans, and they are very good at presenting projects that seem lucrative. The men who sit before me on this board or on the planning board do not need to feel intimidated by these people. They cannot move forward without your approval. You have been elected to protect the interests of your constituents in Milltown, not developers from out of town. Your own neighbors are pleading with you to please protect our interests by preserving our properties. This development would absolutely ruin our properties for us. We are telling you how unhappy we would be if this project were to take place. We are imploring you to listen to what we are requesting of you, and we are requesting a lot of you. We are requesting that you resist the ambitions of these real estate developers and to fight on our behalf, to be brave enough to stand up to greedy developers. Which of you sitting before us has the courage to stop enriching out-of-town builders at the expense of established Milltown residents? What's being proposed is to take away our scenic backyards, increase our taxes, and destroy our properties from flooding, and Milltown can't afford this deal. If you ever wanted to be a hero, this is your moment. We need you to protect our interests, your constituents, your neighbors. It will be difficult to vote no. These people have invested a lot of time, money, and effort into this project so far. This is why we need you to be strong, resolute, and to stand up for us. We pray that you will have the strength and courage to vote no. When it comes to that moment, when it's your turn to vote, remember, you are protecting us, your own. This is not what I just read.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something in response to you.
I would rather,
No,
Councilman.
it's a
This is
pending application.
I would rather you not comment on it. Ms. Pennell is entitled to come up and make her comments at the microphone, but
Do you have a copy for me for the planning board? Ma'am?
I would just merely indicate, Mr. Orlando, as you know, you can take that, but that cannot be distributed.
No? Okay.
And I would suggest you speak with the planning board attorney regarding that, but anyone wishing to make a comment on
Has to be
an application
present.
needs to be present and appear and make those comments.
Dave Naskins, 59 West Foch. I want to just piggyback on Courtney's comments before, because I assume there's a flag policy in which the decision was made to her request. And if there is not a flag policy, I think it's incumbent on the council to develop one. The idea that we have a one flag policy, obviously not. There's 4 flags flying out there right now tonight. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you could just let me know, is there a flag policy on the books?
Not
I
that
don't
I'm,
know of one.
Okay.
that's what, I had reached out to Mr. Vignolo. We had the conversation and we had to dig into it. He was not in town this weekend, so he couldn't dig into that too deeply where he was.
Okay, is there
We're
going
gonna-
to be
We're
an
gonna be
effort
looking
to
into it.
develop a flag policy?
We are going to be looking into it. We had the conversation.
With
this
help from the
afternoon.
Human Relations Committee.
Okay.
What flags are currently outside, by the
Well,
way?
there's the state of New Jersey flag, the American flag, and I think there's 2 POW flags.
One's KIA, the other one's POW.
Okay.
Because I did.
Controversial.
The issue is not whether they're controversial, Councilman. The issue is what should be up there and what shouldn't be up there.
I will say that I saw the email, I chose not to respond to it because in my personal belief, looking at other institutions, once you allow a particular group or a particular flag to fly, you have to allow them all. And that is a very, very slippery slope.
Correct. Right, but right now, we are making distinctions and we're allowing 4 flags to fly, and that may be the right decision. But I think there should be a policy that we can all look to on paper so that it's not a decision that's made arbitrarily.
These are all kind of, with the exception of, I guess, of the KIA and POW, all of the flags that I do see are government, whether they're state, federal,
Absolutely.
town, county.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think that's, you know, a place to start at.
Correct. And it might not be in front of a borough building, it might not be the place for a pride flag or a Juneteenth flag. Those are not divisive flags, in my view. And there may be a place for them, and there may not be a place for them, and there may not be a place for them. But there should be a policy. Should be a policy that
I
dictates
agree.
that.
We should develop a policy.
I'm sorry, Gary, I cut you off.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Add that to the new business.
Milltown. Just to continue on the same theme we're going forward with, I don't know, Councilman Poznanski, did you know that there were other flags flying outside?
No, Neil, I did not look, but I do know they're governmental flags. And I will say
Well, there are
something
two,
else.
let me ask my
Well,
question
no, I wanna
first.
say, just because
I'm
you're
happy
offended
for you to go
does not
ahead.
mean
Council
you are right.
comments come later.
Sir,
Council comments.
sir, I'm not yelling at you,
Speak.
okay? So I just want to know if you see those other flags and you have the strong family feelings that you have, why didn't you request that those other flags come down? If you find that they're divisive as well.
I asked for flags to come down?
No, why you didn't?
Why I didn't?
Well, you said there's only one flag, and that's the only one we need.
Why should I? Okay.
So I don't understand it. With Councilman Revelinsky's comment, I don't believe that if you put up one flag, you have to permit them all, or there will be litigation or concerns. The two that were referred by the Human Relations Committee are two governmental holidays and notices, okay? Juneteenth is a holiday.
I understand.
Very powerful, important holiday. And the Pride Month is a recognition by our federal government. These are nationally recognized holidays or recognitions. They are not prohibited, okay? So to fly those flags would not be entertaining any other flag to come up. If another entity that was not federally recognized, or, for example, the U.S. flag, we fly it, rightfully so, and it should always be flown higher than any other flag. But it does not mean if you fly the Juneteenth flag or any other Christmas flag, whatever national holiday there is, that you would be in violation of the law by prohibiting another flag that does not have such stature or backing.
If I may, Mr. Murata.
Of course.
The letter was written, I believe, the 12th of June. We received it last Friday, I want to say, or the Friday before Juneteenth, which it was last Wednesday, so it had to be the Friday before. So really not a lot of time to make that determination. In my mind, these are the things that came to mind as potential pitfalls and you know, how do we navigate this? And like Mr. Hastings said, we don't have a policy. So before we go ahead and get ourselves in any sort of trouble, without the policy, I saw a couple responses here from other council members, and in my thought, best to stay clear, at least for now.
I can appreciate that. It's always wise to review something thoroughly and make sure you're correct on it. I will state that if this body was to say that those flags should not be flown after a review, I'd have a concern. and have a serious concern about where this governing body is coming from. So that being stated, I believe it's a great idea to have a committee meeting and discuss this issue, because the whole idea for the Human Relations Committee is to build unity, not divisiveness. And by showing respect for other people within our municipality, that's how you do that. It builds unity. So I request that that be done as soon as possible. Thank you.
My name is Feng Kai. I'm living in 181 South Main Street. I want to continue to provide my endorsement to Jennifer, because we are a neighbor. We are facing.
Can I have you speak into the microphone a little bit? You're very soft-spoken. Thank you.
So you heard the beginning, right? So my name, and my name is Feng Kai, and I'm living in 181 South Main Street. I want to provide my endorsement to Jennifer, what she said, because we are living, we are neighbor, and we are living in the same area and facing the same problem. So besides this one, I want to take this opportunity to clarify something, because now I see the contractor is working on the pavement of the sidewalk on the South Main Street, right? But I don't know what's the criteria they decide which spot they repave or which spot they skip. Because I saw some broken piece, they have not paved yet, but they just skipped and then go to somewhere else. I don't know if they have the plan to come back to fix that, or they just go. So
Where would this piece be? You're talking about the road?
Yeah, the road, sidewalk.
Oh, the sidewalk?
Yeah, sidewalk.
Okay, so the sidewalk restoration it's all part of PSE&G that's doing the work, but they have had a different company that comes out was doing the sidewalk work.
Okay,
So I don't know if they stopped to make room for the paving, because when they've been doing the ones on Main Street, they had a police officer and the vehicles kind of blocking. So my guess would be they're coming back to repair that sidewalk.
I hope
But
so.
if you can do a report of concern on the borough website, or if you can give us the address of the location where that sidewalk is broken, is it at 181 South Main?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll bring that to PSE&G and ask them to address this.
I assume they will come back to fix, but it seems like because it's milled already, so, and it looks like they are paved the whole street. And then, I don't know.
Yeah, they may have just cleared out of the way so the milling can occur, the paving, and then when that's done, come back and finish up the sidewalk.
Okay.
It also may be that they're only replacing the pieces of sidewalk they removed in order to.
Yeah, correct.
So if there's pieces that were broken that
Prior
were
to.
already broken,
Yep.
they're not gonna replace every piece of broken sidewalk on South Main Street. They're only gonna handle the ones that they caused to be removed.
Right.
Microphone, Mr. Vignolo, please.
Can we get lapel mics so that we can move around?
It's not in the budget,
It's not in the
sorry.
budget.
Not in the budget.
It was in the clerk's budget, but you took it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in charge of the
That's
budget.
my concern. I just want to clarify. Another thing is that, maybe, we mentioned many times as a curb. So, I believe it was mentioned many times before, but I just want to mention again. So just, get everybody to concern. So if possible, it's better to fix together with the pavement. So.
Unfortunately, according to our current ordinance, the curb is also the property owner's responsibility. So it'd be great to do more of them together. But with Main Street, we have asked the county in the past to fix the curbs. They have just simply not responded to those requests, as far as my knowledge goes. However, it's something that we should be looking at, and in fact, we passed an ordinance, I believe we passed it tonight, where we set aside some monies to start fixing the curbs from the south side of town, hopefully moving forward to the north end, because they are in bad shape, and it would make a difference, especially for safety.
So you mentioned, so you said the curb is belong to the property owner, right? But I remember I have the survey when I purchased that property, right? So I saw, yeah, they gave me the survey of the corner, right? So last time I just look at the picture, I saw the corner is behind the curb. So that means the curb should belong to the public, I believe, so.
It's a question, it's not a question of it being necessarily on your property, it's a question of whether or not a municipality can make it your obligation, you know. So you can be responsible for restoration of your sidewalk, even though it's not on your property. Municipalities are allowed to have an ordinance that says the property owner is responsible for the sidewalk. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on your property in order for it to be your responsibility.
So you mean I can fix by myself?
If, I will admit, I don't have a full,
Yeah,
I haven't memorized our whole ordinance, so.
that would have to go under the submit an application for the construction official, I believe, to approve, right? The construction department to look at the curb work application and make the determination if it can be performed. And yeah, it's an interesting scenario. But I know we've had this issue in the past with many residents who have complained about their curbs being uneven, whether it's lifted by a tree or for various reasons, and it falls back on the property owner. Just like your water service that goes from the pipe that's in the street to your home. Under the current ordinance, you as the property owner are responsible for that, even if it breaks in the road.
Okay.
We know you don't own the road, but that pipe is your responsibility currently as the way it is written.
Okay. Yeah, but when I purchased a property, right, about 4 years ago, I think about fix by myself, but I thought if everybody else to fix by their own, right, so the curves looks like not consistent, so so I assume that should be somebody or some contractor, right, so fix together or something, I think.
So I did inquire with the county several times. My last inquiry with the county prior to the paving project, this was going back a bit. So the county does not do the curbing and sidewalks unless they do a complete restoration of the roadway. And since Main Street is a county road, they're responsible for overseeing that. They had indicated that they will not be issuing any curb permits because it's going to be a brand-new roadway, and the way the county requires a new curb to be installed is you have to cut the roadway and then dig it all out and actually go down, I don't know, what is it, 12 inches?
About 20 inches.
How much?
20 inches.
20 inches, and then repave all that area. And since they're just repaving the road, they're not going to approve any permits because the roadway is brand new with that. But the sidewalks are a different permit than the curbing.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for listening.
But I asked a question prior to try to see if we could get the curbs and sidewalks done prior to the milling and paving, and it was just the answer was no, because the county wasn't going to put forth the money to do the curbing and sidewalks.
Yeah, I knew
on that.
But thanks for listening again.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did forget something.
Your name
Neil
for the
Murata,
record.
54 Van Loo, Milltown, New Jersey. The paving, and that reminded me. Will the Main Street paving correct the intersection of Main and Van Loo? And the reason I ask it is in really bad disrepair, and we have the parade coming up in a couple weeks.
What do you mean correct it?
It's totally torn up, and there's a big divot in the intersection. So I don't know if the paving will extend into Van Loo enough to, it's right at the intersection.
It probably would not. I'm assuming they only have to do a certain width of what the trench was for the pipe. But I believe the county has made them go curb to curb, so If it extends beyond the curve of Main Street and into Van Roo, I would highly doubt that they are.
Yeah.
It's worth an ask.
If possible, because it's really dangerous. It's eaten up so terribly. It's a trip hazard, and
How
you're
far
going to have
back would you say?
a few feet. Not that far at all.
So
Yeah.
the county, under the contract, the county's contractor is gonna be doing to Vanderbilt. That will be done before Fourth of July. It'll be done on Thursday.
That's done. Vanderbilt's done.
Vanderbilt, they did already, but Main Street up to that area, I think it's, Riva, thank you. And then the county is actually gonna come in and do from North Brunswick side to Riva, where they didn't pave. So, the Department of Public Works Director actually was able to get the county to do that because so then this way the county has a full brand-new roadway from end to end of Milltown. But we couldn't get that to work prior to 4th of July.
Okay.
So they are going to do that in August, sometime early August, before any of the children go back to school, to try to get that done.
I'm going to recommend then if some patchwork can be done to.
Can you send a concerned, report of concern?
Sure.
We'll reach out.
So we can
Okay.
identify.
I'll send you a video too.
To know exactly where it is.
Okay, great.
Or send it.
I'll do both.
Send it to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Council comments. Is there anything further that anyone on council would like to bring up at this time?
Yes. I had 3 questions. I'm just going, because it's late, I'm only going to bring up 2. Are we still hosting North Brunswick courts gratis?
Yes.
Why? Are there any talks?
Councilman Manco just brought that up under the new business. That will be taking the lead on addressing that and discussing with them and hopefully being able to charge them more.
But we haven't had any discussions since we voted down the situation that you guys wanted.
That you guys, okay.
I tried in, earlier this year, with the CFO.
I'm aware.
Okay. But that's the last time I tried.
Yeah. North Brunswick told us at that time that they were gonna be here for 3 months. I think we all kind of knew that wasn't gonna happen, but I think now 3 months are up. So it's certainly time to revisit.
It's a question for Peter. Peter, what form of government does Milltown Borough adhere to?
Milltown is a borough.
Weak mayor, strong council?
It's typically what your borough form of government is.
Okay. Who's responsible for the allowance of Borough Hall employee functions on site? Or actually, Fred, would you know that?
I didn't quite get your question there, Councilman, here.
okay.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone?
Sure.
You're talking to my deaf ear.
Who's responsible for the allowance of Borough Hall employee functions on site?
Allowance or allowing?
Sure.
So
Who's supervision?
that would fall under the purview of the business administrator, sir?
Okay. Who's responsible for the allowing employees' children on site in the rare case of childcare glitches?
So that permission was given by me?
Okay. Because I see nothing in our bylaws or state laws giving the mayor the power to regulate or dictate in either of these situations. I've asked for clarification from the mayor and I have received none. Unless enforced by the majority of council, this should not stand.
I think in anything, it's in the absence of an official policy that's been adopted, it would fall under the purview of the business administrator.
Okay. So Mr. Carr, you would handle situations like that?
Yes, sir. But as I expressed in the email, the mayor called me on the phone on Thursday afternoon about 1:45, as I was coming in to eat ice cream. Okay, and expressed his concern, okay, and said that we should not do that. And, you know, I brought in the 2 employees and told them that, you know, we need to come up with a new plan in no uncertain words. And that Mayor expressed his concern that the team building activities that we had tried should be approved by the mayor and council. And that's what I sent out in the email. So the next time we decide to have some kind of a team building exercise or a birthday party or something, I'll come and get Borough Council permission. I disagree with the mayor, but that's his right as the mayor, provided by that authority by the labor attorney, that he has more power in the statute.
Do you need permission?
No, sir, I don't think so, but I will honor the wishes of the mayor. I disagree, but I will honor the wishes of the mayor. That's a difference. There's a difference. I can respectfully disagree, but I will offer he is the mayor, whether I agree or I disagree.
Well, if someone or entity is going to make the call, would it not be the Borough Council and majority of to give you, if you feel you need permission?
Councilman, at 10:30 at night, let me just be blunt. Okay? As we all know, I'm a rather blunt kind of guy. It probably comes from hitting my head in the paratroops. I don't got time for this. I don't really care. Okay? If the mayor objects to these kinds of things and it bothers him, then we just won't do it. Okay? I'm really busy. I have a lot of things to do. I spend all day trying to do what's right for the borough, day in and day out. I spend a lot of time here. I spend a lot of time at home, as most of you have called me, you sent me emails, you know. I ain't got time for this, frankly.
Well, I don't want to keep anyone here any longer either, but I did think this is important to bring up.
I totally agree. So if you want to know why I didn't have a conversation and tell the mayor, no, we're not going to do that, or I disagree, you know what? Whatever. As my 13-year-old granddaughter would say, I don't have time. It's not worth my time to get into a conversation of whether or not it's right or wrong. He is the mayor.
For now.
But it is
Separate
a case,
conversation.
but it is a case
Look.
of right or wrong.
Didn't, that's not the conversation, Councilman.
Okay, I'm done for tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, my comments. So, yes, I did communicate with Mr. Carr about this. I did not say anything about birthday parties, but the concern that I had was about the time being after the lunchtime for everyone, and had a concern about the salaries that were taxpayer dollars that were there, and not that I didn't have a problem with it. I just said it should be approved by mayor and council, or just council, obviously, just so everyone's aware of it. So create a policy to just general awareness, so there's guidelines of what should be done, what shouldn't be done, and currently there's nothing in place for there. I did contact Mr. Vignolo and our labor attorney for guidance and just conversations about it, and that's what the recommendations were, just to make sure it's all clarified and everything else. So, will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-129? No, you're done.
I'm done?
Please read Resolution 2024-129.
It's 2024-212, entering executive session. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the governing body wishes to discuss pending litigation, and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires that confidentiality, then the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the public be excluded from this meeting. I need a motion and a second.
So.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins.
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco. Councilman Poznanski. Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
I need 3 minutes to use the room ahead.
Yes, I do. Yep. I'll give it to you.